Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 14th, 2025 Board of Education regular board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 4:34. Do we have any public comment for closed session items? Not seeing any. So we will go to closed session. We'll return at 6 p.m. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 14th, 2025 Board of Education regular board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:07, and we have language access. Welcome.
Thank you. We have Spanish interpretation and also ASL interpretation available through Zoom if anybody would like to use those services. Buenas tardes, tenemos interpretación al español disponible si alguien gusta escuchar la presentación en español. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Maldonado, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please rise and face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. In closed session, the board voted to approve the dismissal of a classified management employee pursuant to Board Policy 4218. The motion carried 3-0. Next, we have our student board member report.
All right, so we have had, as of recent, the homecoming dances at most of our high schools, events that are organized heavily by the associated student bodies. In other news, the second Student Advisory Council meeting will be tomorrow, which I'm super excited about. We will be taking steps in establishing the high school to junior high, as well as the high school to elementary school pipelines. And then expect updates to come to our district's website, including information on the Student Advisory Council soon. These updates will include information on the function and purpose of the council, the focus for this year, the past focuses of the council, as well as how to get involved, including meeting dates and different contact information. And that is all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Maldonado, the superintendent's report.
Good evening, board members, cabinet staff, and members of the public. Tonight, it gives me great joy to report out on our official state test scores. Our students, teachers, staff, and administrators have come together to achieve remarkable results. Test scores are soaring back to levels not seen since before the pandemic, showcasing the hard work and commitment of everyone involved. According to the official California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, known as CASP, which was released last week, English language arts scores indicate that 51.7% of students are meeting or exceeding the standard. And in mathematics, 41.4% of the students are meeting or exceeding the standard. You can read the full results on our website by scanning the QR code on your screen. But gaps still exist. The next chart shows the discrepancy between those students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged as compared to students who are not socioeconomically disadvantaged. Our commitment is to continue to work on this persistent gap. We will continue to strive to improve this. These recent test scores with showing growth across our district are a powerful testament to the tireless effort of our teachers and staff. This achievement is a direct result of their commitment to our call to action, to create joyful, engaging, and inclusive learning environments that foster a love of learning for all. It proves that by focusing on evidence-based practices and aligning as leaders, teachers, and staff, we can accelerate equitable results in academic progress for every single student. Our teachers are the heart of this success, and I couldn't be prouder of their dedication and craft. We will have a deeper dive for board members in our upcoming student outcomes report at the next meeting. This weekend, I also had the opportunity to attend the All Dons reunion on Saturday, where they celebrated 150 years of Santa Barbara High School. It was great to see the community come out in a big way to celebrate the Dons. There was a lot of fun, energy, and I want to thank all of the organizers who made it possible. I know they spent countless of hours organizing and gathering all of the different ways that they could celebrate, including the top 150 athletes that have come out of Santa Barbara High. Lastly, In our continuing series showing you arts dollars at work, we're excited to show you the big upgrades at Goleta Valley's video production class. They now have state-of-the-art equipment, and I think Board Member Caffrey and I visited and got a chance to speak to the teacher before all of this had arrived. So now we get to see how these cameras work and how they'll be used to make major motion pictures, thanks to the Arts Black grant. Here's how we're helping students say lights, camera, action.
I teach film production at Goleta Valley Junior High for the CTE instruction. The arts funding this year has been tremendous in improving my film production class because it's given us access to equipment and tools that the students could only dream of before, where they were using their iPad and they weren't that excited about making projects on a tool that they already have. Now they're shooting on industry standard cameras, using industry standard software, and being able to output high quality content.
We get to do a bunch of cool projects with people. Sometimes we get to choose our partners. And then also we get to watch movies on Friday. The cameras are super high quality. We get to learn a lot of interesting things.
They're using lenses and camera packages and different equipment that they wouldn't have otherwise had access to. And it allows me to teach at a higher level where this is now a more advanced class than it could have been because of the equipment. My background is in film production and narrative producing. And typically when I put together a budget, it comes back and I'm marked down on all these things and told you've got to adjust, you've got to cut, you've got to get rid of this. And so I put in for the dream of what I wanted and I was expecting that same feedback. But I got everything that I asked for. There was full acceptance of what I had requested and they came through all the way. For the students to be able to use this type of equipment is very rare, especially at this age. You know, we're shooting on a level of equipment that has a sophistication that usually wouldn't be until entry level in college. So we're able to get them into the gear, get them familiar with it, and really push what they're doing in terms of storytelling, using the technical to really build on what they're doing in the storytelling and the creative side, and allow them to explore a whole new level of creativity. The students were thrilled when I told them that we got approved for the grant last year. It was the first class that, was going to have access to cameras, and they were thrilled because had been shooting on iPads all year and using what they had. And then I opened up one of the camera cases and they're like, oh my gosh, this is like a $5,000 or $6,000 camera that we get to use and we get to be entrusted with to really make some amazing content.
So I'm really proud of Mr. Stutzman. It was such a creative way for us to spend our money. And then as I think about our focus on literacy, reading, writing, you have to write a script before you can film a movie. So I think this all connects back to that joyful learning environment. Thank you. That's my report for today.
Thank you. That takes us to D8, public comments for non-agenda matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. Mr. Banning.
We have one virtual comment and 12 live. First, the virtual comment is from Brianna Serrato. While we're getting there, the next ones will be Christina Manili, Robin Seltzer, and Amy McMillan.
Hi, my apologies. This is my first time doing virtual speaking. Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Brianna Serrato, pronounced she, her, aya, and I am a parent of a 4th grader and 7th grader within the district. I am again asking for the district and its new legal counsel to not act preemptively with changes to board policies or regulations in regards to parental opt-outs. notifications, and options due to the Supreme Court's harmful decision regarding Muhammad v. Taylor, as it seriously endangers students' access to safe and inclusive public education. Allowing these vague and broad opt-outs is a slippery slope that is already being seen by the Maryland School District in the case with opt-outs requests for materials related to LGBTQIA+, culture, diversity, inclusion, and social justice issues. I also wanted to bring up concerns regarding the recent Panorama surveys that I know are used to help drive district and school decisions regarding policies, programs, and funding. The fall survey was very confusing in that the majority of the questions were phrased in the last year. While this may not be an issue for most elementary families who likely are at the same school currently as they were last year, this can severely skew the results for 7th grade and 9th graders, as well as any other students that have transferred schools. There is also still concern that EML, emergent multilingual learner students, and special education students' points of views are not being accurately captured. In the spring, I attended multiple LCAP committee meetings where Panorama results were relied on heavily for gold measures. At one of those meetings, I was in a group with MTSS teacher Anne Marie Galbraith, Assistant Superintendent Edison, and Superintendent Maldonado. Anne Marie and I both had concerns when we learned that for the Panorama surveys, these students were not receiving additional support like they normally do with things for testing and along those lines, and even for the students with IEPs that have separate testing accommodations. Anne Marie is a teacher and has seen the language with these and knows that it can be very confusing and that many of the students have difficulty understanding those. Thankfully, I had reached out to my son's new special education teacher this year to make sure that he would have that support. And I learned that he had the same concerns that I did when we were doing the surveys, in that since we've switched schools this year, in the last year, our last school at Roosevelt, we would have said very unfavorably on numerous options, including school safety and climate and being able to
30 seconds.
get assistance. However, at his new school at Community Academy, it is the complete opposite. And so for him, it was, well, for here or for Roosevelt. So some of these school testings or results are going to be very skewed if you don't have the preemptive of is it the school year or if since the beginning of the start of the school year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Christina Manile, followed by Robin Seltzer and Amy McMillan. Christina, thank you.
My esteemed colleagues, I use the title of Mix, spelled MX, with great pride as a non-binary individual. I have been Mix Manili since I began student teaching nearly 6 years ago, and facing this fear of discrimination or rejection from my community because of my identity is something I am excited to have overcome. It has brought me more love and confidence than I've ever expected since even being a substitute, having parents, having students come out to me, having families say, "Oh my gosh, you are the representation that my child needs right now. Thank you." All of that feels under attack right now with the vagueness of Mahmoud v. Taylor. The shirt I'm wearing right now that says Queer Filipinx is one that I wore for a 5th grader when COVID had just restarted back up. We were allowed to go in person. The student was scared to tell his classmates that he was a proud ballet dancer. And he very straightforward asked me, "Mix Manili, are you queer?" And I said, yes. Being open and proud of my identity in this way has brought students the confidence, the courage to also be themselves. And what I hope for in this next future is that all others, my colleagues, teammates, families, students, they have the opportunity to express themselves without fear, to have exposure to folks like myself, and the opportunity to ask questions, be educated as they so wish, not vague opposition and omission of my identity. I don't need you to respect me. I respect me. I don't need you to love me. I love me. but I want you to know if you want to know me. And there's only one way to do that, and it's if you open your mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Seltzer, followed by Amy McMillan and Anna Guerrero. Guerrero.
I'm a teacher at Dos Pueblos High School. My name is Robin Selzler. I'm also a religious person. And teaching at the high school level, I am really concerned about this opt-out policy that we're doing preemptively here in response to Mahmoud versus Taylor. The very fact of having an opt-out policy, along with the lack of clarity that multiple people I think are going to be talking about today, is going to have a cooling effect on the inclusive conversations and curriculum that we have worked hard to build in this community. It seems like an impossible task to accommodate every potential religious concern while offering a free, secular, and inclusive education, which is our purpose. If you absolutely must create a policy, I hope you will work very closely with legal counsel to minimize the impact of this case on that inclusive school culture, where every student is valued and accepted for exactly who they are, regardless of what they believe or how they identify. They should feel just as safe as a trans child as they do as an evangelical child. Please also work closely with legal counsel to minimize the impact of this case on a free speech. Teachers and students should be able to, without fear, initiate a class-wide discussion about, for example, a conversation that happened in my classroom this past week, whether or not Holden Caulfield might be gay. What textual evidence in Catcher in the Rye supports or challenges this theory? If it's true, how would that impact our understanding of him and his choices in the book, given the cultural norms and attitudes about homosexuality at the time? We should also have the freedom to reflect on what our response to that question teaches us about ourselves. And we should be able to do that without fear of censure, without having to awkwardly excuse someone from the classroom. Those are the things that I really am concerned about. And so I just wanted to share that story because I thought it was very pertinent to this. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Amy McMillan, followed by Anna Guerrero and Kelly Savio.
Hi, my name's Amy McMillan. I've been teaching with Santa Barbara Unified Schools for 27 years. I want to speak tonight about the Mahmoud v. Taylor Supreme Court decision because I know that the district is trying to figure out how to comply with this new law. I want to say that one idea that has been floated to me is labeling books and other texts that are taught as LGBTQ+ in order to notify families is discriminatory, flat out discriminatory. It is also logistically problematic. What qualifies as an LGBTQ+ text? Does it only pertain to the protagonist, or do side characters need to also be labeled? More importantly, when we label the text in order to send out notifications, what message does that send to the school community, particularly our LGBTQ+ students, teachers, and parents? Are we saying something is wrong or dangerous about their identities? So wrong and dangerous that we need to warn families in advance. Also, who is planning the alternate lessons and where should the students go if they opt out? If this burden is placed on teachers, I fear we can pretty much guarantee that most or many will avoid talking about LGBTQ+ issues and themes because they won't have the time or resources for the extra planning. Also, where does this end? What will we be asked to do next? Are we going to ask for permission before students can read books from the library? What other topics may conflict with different families' beliefs? Are we going to label every potentially controversial issue in every text we read? I understand that the Supreme Court decision exists, but I don't understand why we need to obey in advance. I also do not understand why we would ever send out warnings about specific LGBTQ+ texts and lessons. It is a slippery slope to censorship.
Thank you. Anna Guerrero, followed by Kelly Savio and Megan Bradbury.
Hello, Good evening, board members and Superintendent Maldonado. I'm also a teacher here at Santa Barbara Unified. And I would like to urge caution as the district explores guidance in response to the Mahmoud versus Taylor. First, I'm going to start by reading excerpts from SB Unified's resolution number 2024-2025-31, Recognition of Pride Month, May 27th, 2025. Quote, whereas SBUSD works to honor all students, staff members, and families who identify as LGBTQ2IA+, fostering a welcoming school climate where they can live their authentic lives and be treated with dignity and respect. And whereas a hostile school climate affects students' academic success and mental health, LGBTQ2IA+ students who experience victimization and discrimination at school have worse educational outcomes and poorer psychological well-being. And whereas there have been numerous studies indicating the inequities experienced by the LGBTQIA+ community, including poverty, homelessness, school harassment, physical assault, domestic violence, hate crimes, mental health issues, and substance abuse concerns. And whereas SBUSD recognizes that queer-phobic bias exists and takes a stance to eliminate both explicit and implicit, as well as micro and macro aggressions through proactive messaging and celebrating queer culture and history. This language from our resolution clearly asks that we affirm and support our LGBTQ students, colleagues, and community. In response to the Mahmoud versus Taylor ruling, recommendations from the Joint Legal FAQ released by the ACLU, Equity California, National Center for Youth Law, and Public Counsel states that, quote, schools should not segregate LGBTQ+ related content in an effort to make opt-outs administratively easier. The recommendation goes on to say that, quote, studies show that inclusive education not only boosts academic outcomes, but also helps to build empathy and greater connection amongst all students. It goes on to say, siloing this information does not necessarily serve the intended goal of accommodating religious objections, since the logic of Mahmoud also would permit opting out of other content that parents believe, quote, substantially interferes with the religious development of their children, end quote. Lastly, according to the guidance from the California Department of Education, quote, the court in Mahmoud did identify certain factors that may guide LEAs in deciding whether to provide families notice and opt out of exposure to certain instruction or curriculum. These factors include the nature of the specific religious beliefs and practices asserted, the age of the child, i.e. elementary as compared to high school, and the context of the exposure, neutral information as compared to a presentation that is hostile to religious beliefs or excerpts, either explicitly or otherwise, pressure to conform. Again, in light of our district resolution and the recommendations of respected legal counsels and the California Department of Ed, I ask the district work to ensure our LGBTQ2IA+ students are not targeted, but instead welcomed and included. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kelly Savio, followed by Megan Bradbury and Amy Salzman.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I teach at DP. In any given school year, it is impossible for me to know or even predict what religious affiliations the students in my classroom will have. I may be teaching students who are affiliated with Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, or even lesser known churches that are still recognized by our federal government as religious institutions, such as Zoroastrianism, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, the Church of Satan, and Scientology. I don't know my students' religions, and it doesn't really matter because I will care for them and teach them just the same. It is true that sometimes I might have to make adjustments for these students, such as not celebrating a birthday or making sure to explain certain religious allusions in a book, rather than assuming everyone is familiar with the stories of Abrahamic religions. If my class were to require some sort of warning label or notification of content that is, quote, potentially threatening to religion, I don't know how I'd be able to thoughtfully accomplish such a thing. How can I know what all the potential religions in my classes may find, quote, threatening? Therefore, I would simply say, here is my syllabus and a list of our core texts. There is probably something in all of the texts that someone could call a very real threat to their religion. I am currently reading Frankenstein with my seniors, a book where the human protagonist defies both the Abrahamic God and the Wiccan mother goddess by finding the secret to creating life. I would imagine that the recent Supreme Court ruling of Mahmoud versus Taylor would demand a notification of such potentially objectionable content. although the ruling is actually very unclear as to what requires notification and what doesn't. What I will never do, however, is say that the only books that need to be flagged are those with LGBTQIA plus content in them. That would be discriminatory and send a wholly inappropriate message to my students. Why then is the district talking about using LGBTQIA plus content as the only determining factor of what could pose a, quote, very real threat to students' religious education at home? Why are our librarians being asked to create lists of these materials when this board has passed multiple resolutions in support of and celebrating our district's LGBTQIA plus community? Rather than using wildly unsuitable benchmarks like this, please direct our district administrators to find a better way to navigate this admittedly tricky Supreme Court ruling. And as you already heard, why are we doing this in advance before we've been directed to do so? Making our LGBTQIA plus students feel like they or material that reflects their identity somehow requires a warning is simply unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Megan Bradbury, followed by Amy Salzman and Rich Lashua.
Hi, everybody. I'm here today to address our district's response to the Supreme Court ruling on Mahmoud versus Taylor. While we have always more work to do, our district is at the forefront of several equitable policies, including one-to-one tech, our school lunch policy, and our offering of ethnic studies courses. We pride ourselves on every child, every chance, every day, and we must continue to advocate for a more just world, a world that has yet to be created, which is on the sign on our mission statement right behind you all. We need to be really intentional about the actions that we take and consider the message this sends to our student, as well as our staff and our community as a whole, as well as other districts, other states, and ultimately our students, because that is really who we're here to serve. We can resist by waiting to hear more information. This is something you are going to hear a lot tonight. We do not need to preemptively volunteer our rights away. And by volunteering the rights of some students away, we are going to create a slippery slope of volunteering the rights of potentially our own rights as well, whether you are part of the LGBTQIA community or not. All oppression is linked, and we are not free until we're all free. And if I may read a poem that I've incorporated into a world history class that I find particularly poignant. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me, by Martin Niemöller. I truly hope that we choose the course of action that aligns with our values and sets a message that our students can also create a world that is yet to be created. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Salzman, followed by Rich Lashua and Blaine Sayre.
Good evening. As you likely know, California just enacted the Safe Learning Environments Act. This law requires that schools and districts implement robust protocols to protect our children from grooming and abuse. Key requirements include empowering students and school staff to recognize and report grooming, and improving background checks, professional boundaries, and the reporting and tracking of egregious incidents of misconduct. I am a local mother, physician, and internationally recognized abuse prevention expert. The district can and should go well beyond simply fulfilling the new law's requirements. In our limited time, let's focus on one key aspect of the law: grooming. Fortunately, the law requires that students receive training, and I would add, engaging age-appropriate training on how to identify grooming. Unfortunately, the law incorrectly defines grooming as the manipulative tactics adults use to build trust before abuse occurs. We must understand that grooming doesn't just lead to abuse. Rather, grooming is in and of itself abuse, covert emotional abuse. And research shows that children who experience emotional abuse are more likely than those who experience either physical or sexual abuse to suffer from anxiety, depression, PTSD, and dissociative symptoms. Santa Barbara Unified School District has had far too many instances of school staff grooming and abusing our children. We need to implement cost-effective, broadly deployable, trauma-sensitive prevention protocols. The district doesn't need to start from scratch. The law offers basic guidance, and I will happily offer community schools free screenings and discussions of videos that empower students, parents, and school staff to spot and stop grooming and more obvious emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Judge Rosemarie Aquilina, who sentenced Larry Nasser, actively promotes these videos. I am confident the district will enact comprehensive prevention protocols, and to the parents and guardians in the room, I say there's no need to wait. You must act now to empower your children to recognize and confidently report grooming and abuse, and to ask them about what they see and how they feel during schools and other activities, and to believe them when they report abuse.
20 seconds.
The superintendent, school board members, principals, and PTAs need to select or create programs to protect our children from grooming and abuse and the devastating long-term consequences. I am happy to support you.
Thank you. Rich Lashua, followed by Blaine Sayer and Eleanor Skladman.
Excuse me. Good evening. Franklin Elementary has some of the district's best state test scores. Statistically surprising, since the school is 90% socioeconomically disadvantaged. Nearly a fifth of the school is homeless, and almost half the school doesn't speak English at home. Yet they match or outperform their wealthier English-speaking counterparts every year. They're a California Distinguished School and a Gold Ribbon School, rare honors shared by few others. And they have the only California Exemplary Arts Education Program Award in the entire district. Franklin prioritized the arts, and their kids overcame significant barriers to succeed time and again. Franklin's test scores before and after their embrace of arts programs cannot be denied. Similarly, among the other elementary schools, the more vibrant the arts program, the higher the test scores. Yet in 2008, a temporary removal of the 7th period at our junior highs made a bottleneck. For over a generation, only the elite are offered arts classes. EML students who flourished in Franklin's arts programs must use their elective spot for an additional English support class. Now they must take up to 7 classes in a 6-period day, with no option of art, music, or theater unless they want to be at school for 8 periods while their peers only have to show up for 6. A disproportionate number of students at La Cumbre and Santa Barbara Junior High are English learners. The district cut the arts at these campuses, including my film class, due to low enrollment. If a third of your school can't even take an arts class without it being their 8th class in a 6-period day, but all the white kids across town have access to the arts, this is a tremendous equity issue, not an enrollment one. And Franklin kids are the least likely to be able to afford to commute across town for arts programs that so clearly helped them. Why hasn't a single school considered cutting their 7th grade science programs to make room for them? There's no state test for 7th grade science, so what's the big deal? Obviously, it's detrimental to take a year off and then spend years later catching up in science. Yet arts are not given the same value. Franklin reminds us that when we give struggling kids access to the arts, they don't survive, they thrive. And of course, any rational person would recognize this isn't about science or arts. This is about giving kids an education that includes science and arts. Dear board, it is critical you understand that our secondary schools struggle to properly spend millions of Prop 28 dollars for their intended purpose.
25 seconds.
Arts teachers are asked how we're going to spend money on supplies and staffing for classes that can't exist under current schedule restrictions. Until the district and the union agree to expand the schedule to put arts back into secondary schools, this is like asking what kind of hubcaps I want for a car that I don't even have. We can't apply for Prop 28 waivers indefinitely. If we don't start showing that we're using millions of dollars of free money, we definitely will lose it. We've inherited a broken system, and the time for blame is past.
Time is
It's
up.
our responsibility to fix it. Let's go change the world.
Thank you. Blaine Sayer, Eleanor Skladman, and Joel Block.
Hello, board members. My name is Blaine Sayer, and I'm the music teacher at McKinley Elementary and Cleveland Elementary School. I just wanted to share the difficulties that my colleagues and I have experienced so far splitting school sites. This is not to complain, but to hopefully make a change and to help the kids. One of the biggest impacts that I have seen is the workload between the two sites. We have been in both back to school nights, organized 2 classrooms, supplies, instruments, and currently am prepping for 4 winter concerts. With the current pace and rigor between the 2 school sites, it's physically, mentally, and emotionally draining. And it's only October. This system is not built to last and sets experienced teachers up for failure. Another smaller but extremely important effect has been the lack of genuine relationships with students. Because I have little time to work with each class, my priority is focused on executing the content and focus on discipline, rather than building the environment to help them express themselves to their full potential. With 580 students between 2 school sites on differing days, this is an impossible task. Currently, one of the teachers has been abnormally sick since the beginning of the year due to stress, and the other has had a medical professional tell her that the stress of this job has also impacted her health and her family. I'm young, but even I know this job, splitting sites, is not sustainable. One potential temporary solution is to have increased pay to compensate for the 580 students. That's one of many possible solutions, and I would like to work on future solutions with that. But something needs to change, or at least needs to change for next year. We can't meet the students' needs if our needs are not being met. We want our students to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. And Eleanor Skladman, Joel Block, and Myra Oseguera.
Hello, I am speaking today to urge you to wait further in passing any resolution concerning the Mahmoud v. Taylor case due to its anti-LGBTQ+ rhetoric. I am thankful that the board is taking more time to reflect before voting on how to proceed with their resolution, and I would like to add to this conversation. Last year, I was filled with joy at the district's advocacy towards its LGBTQ+ community. In resolution in support of students and families, and resolution recognition of Pride Month, the district pledged, the district believes in the humanity of all persons above the national rhetoric that is currently prevailing in our country and causing fear that harms our migrant families and LGBTQ+ families. A promise to ensure the inclusion of LGBTQ+ representation in the curriculum, the understanding that whereas a hostile school climate affects students' academic success and mental health. Now, I understand that these were before the Supreme Court case. However, true allyship must exist when it is needed the most, not when it is easiest. As the district itself acknowledges, LGBTQ+ people have been directly targeted throughout this administration. On their website, the ACLU is currently tracking 616 anti-LGBTQ+ laws. Adding the ability to opt out of any curriculum that features LGBTQ+ representation is not an innocent defense of parental rights, but rather a part of larger erosion of LGBTQ+ protections. In casting LGBTQ+ people as controversial, the government is spreading homophobic and transphobic messaging. I want you to imagine how an LGBTQ+ student would feel, watching their family receive a Parent Square notification stating that their identity is something to watch out for. How would they feel knowing their government and district is putting a warning on who they are? How would they feel watching their classmates leave the room when a book about someone like them is read? Think of how alone, ashamed, and hopeless that would make someone. It is important to recognize that LGBTQ+ people are directly under attack right now. What would it say then for the district to pass this resolution? Yes, it is the law, but what do we do when the law is unjust? I do not say this lightly, but as someone whose grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, we can't uncritically follow laws that slowly erode people's rights. I want you to ask yourself, what side of history do you see yourself on? Oppression is continued through normal people just doing their jobs because they have to. If other districts are rushing into compliance, I ask you to be braver. Even just waiting until guidance is clear is an act of resistance. The district has the ability to make a new statement in support of the LGBTQ+ community, to protest an unjust law by visibly partnering with an LGBTQ+ organization, to fly the pride flag all year round, to publicly speak against opting out, and more. We don't need to respond to oppression with silence. In your own words, our students' academic and mental health depends on it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joel Block, Myra Oseguera, and Alice Post.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak about the Supreme Court decision in Mahmoud v. Taylor that the board and the district is wrestling with. As a teacher, as an attorney, as a former UCSB adjunct professor of law, I need to say that I do not envy your task in creating a policy to meet the now stated law, our state educational standards, and to create guidelines for classroom teachers. While I have issue with what the board has to do, I believe we need a much more comprehensive policy. In reading Mahmoud v. Taylor, it is clear that the court, while focusing on the LGBTQ plus issues and facts particular to that case, is actually much more comprehensive and worrisome. In its written opinion, the court made two things very clear. One, that any teaching, curricula, etc., that might implicate a person's religious belief requires the school district and the school to give advance notice to all the parents. And two, once a district has ever had any type of opt-out option for any curricular subject, it cannot deny an opt-out option for any other subject. To me, that means that if I'm a science teacher who teaches about evolution, I must first send notice to parents and provide an opt-out. If I'm an art teacher and I show a representation of Michelangelo's statue of David, I might be offending someone's religious sensibilities, which then requires prior notice and an opt-out option. And of course, there are a myriad of subjects and themes in English, social studies, and in fact, in almost any subject that one could reasonably argue implicates someone's religious sensibilities, regardless of how illogical or unreasonable I might find those beliefs. And of course, this does not even touch on our most controversial issue with ethnic studies. I don't have a good answer for this. Should all teachers be required every term to send out a comprehensive course syllabus with massive amount of details? Who is to decide what might implicate someone's religious belief? What do we do in a situation where some student during a class discussion states something that is a legitimate opinion, but offensive to someone's belief?
25 seconds.
Do we stop the discussion, censor the student, immediately try to contact parents? Ultimately, the suggested board policy might be needed, but it needs to be something much more comprehensive. Otherwise, I feel that we'll be faced with censorship in the classroom, denial of student rights, confusion in the classroom, limits on what we teach, and worst of all, possibilities of massive lawsuits. Thank you.
Thank you. Myra Oseguera, Alice Post, and Alyssa Mullen.
Buenas tardes, noches ya creo. Mi nombre es Mayra Oseguera. Me da gusto verlos a todos aquí y a todos los que están presentes.
Good evening. My name is Mayra Oseguera. I'm glad to see all of you here.
La semana pasada fui parte de una reunión para CIM.
Last week, I was part of a meeting for the CIM plan.
No tenía idea de qué se iba a hablar, pero asistí a esta reunión.
I had no idea what it was going to be about, but I attended the meeting.
Fue impactante revisar las estadísticas, las cifras y los números.
And it was impressive to review the data and the statistics and the numbers.
Mirando la disproporcionalidad relacionada a los niños que están doble identificados.
And we were looking at the disproportionality related to the students that have a dual identification.
Tener una chance de 300% de ser doble identificado por el hecho de ser o entender mejor un lenguaje.
Having a 300% chance of being identified or having a double identification just based on the fact that the student knows or understands one language over the other better.
Y en la otra que es algo en lo que tenemos mucho que trabajar.
That's something that we have a lot of work to do in.
Creo que la implementación del M1, M2, M3 va a ayudar con esta disproporcionalidad.
And I think that the implementation of the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 support is going to help with this disproportionality.
Informar a las familias el proceso de apoyo y la intervención y los resultados también es un tema de trabajo.
And also informing families, working on the process of supporting students, working on the intervention, and also the results from all of those things. Those are things that we have to work on as well.
Culturalmente hablando de mí y de mi pueblo natal,
So culturally speaking, and this is on behalf of myself and just from what I know from my native country,
nos enseñaron que las personas que tienen más preparación o más educación son personas a las que debemos de respetar.
and so we were taught that the people that have more of an education and more preparation are people that we should respect.
Y tomar sus sugerencias como algo que debemos de seguir.
And we should take their suggestions as something that we should follow.
Si un padre de familia recién llegado le dice su niño es elegible bajo problema específico de aprendizaje y tendrá una IEP,
And so if a family that is a recent arrival, if the teachers tell that family that their student is eligible for an IEP under a specific learning disability,
las familias van a poner toda su confianza en esta recomendación porque así fuimos educados.
families are going to completely trust that recommendation because that's how we were taught.
Creo que los esfuerzos del comité CIM
I feel like the efforts of the committee working on the CIM plan
se va a trabajar en proporcionar a las familias no solo una elegibilidad o si los niños son considerados multilingües emergentes.
So this committee is going to work on providing information to work on reducing that disproportionality so that families have an option or have more information to make that decision.
Se les mostrará las opciones para que ellos decidan qué es lo mejor para sus niños y evitar que sea el sistema el que los categorice.
Families will be presented options, and that way the family has a role in deciding what is best for their child, as opposed to just allowing the system to categorize them.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Post, followed by Alyssa Mullen and Charles Clow.
Hello. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Maldonado, staff, and the public. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you for letting us have 3 minutes, even though there were a lot of speakers. I want to use my time tonight to highlight an organization which I co-founded 25 years ago, Coalition for Neighborhood Schools. As I said at the last meeting, who is it that is our constituency? And our constituency is every adult that lives in a residence in the city of Santa Barbara or Montecito. To a lesser extent, there may be support for our group from people outside of the city limits of Santa Barbara to the east, to the west, Goleta. But people in Hope District, people to the west who live in the Hope District, who live in the Goleta District, they fundamentally have neighborhood schools. Hope District has no transportation. Every child in the Hope District attends the school closest to their home, their neighborhood school. In Goleta, there is a small amount of transportation, but only a fraction compared to what we have in Santa Barbara. So I would say Goleta has neighborhood schools. Santa Barbara does not have neighborhood schools. Yes, we have some schools in some neighborhoods, but sadly, there are neighborhoods that we don't have schools. And so when you break the system by taking away 3 schools in the central area, you break the whole system. Because how I define neighborhood schools is a school that's you can walk to, that is the closest one to your home. And that maybe 90% of the people who live in that area send their kid to the school. Because part of what a neighborhood school is cohesion of a community. So our history, it was wonderful to go to the Santa Barbara High School 150th reunion, and I appreciated Dr. Maldonado's comments. She made a neat comment that Santa Barbara High School was 1875, the Industrial Revolution, and that we had 2 schools on one campus. And that campus was this campus, Lincoln.
Your time is up.
Unmentioned was that that campus was Lincoln and that Santa Barbara High School was the upstairs of Lincoln School, a block away. And here's a picture of that beautiful building that was sadly
Conclude your
turned
remarks, please. Thank you. Alyssa Mullen, and Charles Clow.
Hello, my name is Alyssa. I'm a teacher in the district. I'm here to request the board clarify and also carefully consider its response to sorry, despite my choice in profession, I'm not very good at professional speaking or public speaking. Okay, versus Taylor, and its impact on our classrooms. We work in a district where we verbalize the value we have of diversity in of all students' experiences in our classrooms. We have the California Department of Education and our state laws like Fair Education Act and the California Healthy Youth Act that continue to prohibit all forms of discrimination and affirm the value of all students seeing themselves in our curriculum. Let's not obey in advance, but I still ask the board to consider carefully how it will act to defend our community members, our values, and our state laws should a situation arise empowered by this court decision and our current political culture. If we are pressured to comply, who is taking on this new burden? What would you do if a teacher was legally targeted for discussing LGBTQ families or their own family? Who is responsible for deciding what is religiously controversial and when it is necessary to contact parents? Who is making said accommodations and taking their time to do so? And what is the board doing to dissect the intricacies of this case and understanding when we should or should not be concerned with religious objections? I hope the board will take a clear stand to protect staff in our diverse classrooms. I ask that you proceed with conviction, and when you are asked to consider how my existence may pose a burden to a religious family, you also consider the burden that such a choice would pose to free speech and critical discussion, as well as inclusion in our classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Clow.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just another voice in the chorus urging you all to really proceed with a lot of caution when it comes to promulgating a policy that could lead to increased marginalization of LGBTQIA2+ youth in an effort to comply with the Supreme Court's recent decision in Mahmoud versus Taylor from earlier this year. On May 27th, all 5 of you voted in favor of a resolution recognizing June as Pride Month. In that resolution, you said Santa Barbara Unified, quote, is committed to safety, inclusion, and representation, end quote, and resolved to implement curriculum that, quote, highlights the contributions of, end quote, the queer community. It would seem that under the doctrine espoused by the U.S. Supreme Court that very statement is controversial. I don't think it's that way. And I doubt any of you do, but it would seem that some of the steps that have been taken recently might muddy the waters on what you all think you owe to queer youth in this community. And as a community member primarily, but as the advisor for the San Marcos High School Gender and Sexuality Alliance, I really balk at any kind of characterization that results in more students being more marginalized. Let me see. You also just the specter of creating some sort of book registry in addition to being Orwellian and scary also, I think, goes against some of the language that you all resolved within the Pride resolution. I have it in my hand, and it says, be it further resolved in accordance with Board Policy Administrative Regulation 1312.2, the Uniform Complaint Procedures one, that any challenges to materials highlighting the LGBTQ2IA+ contributions and or identities, the review committee shall have a representative that identifies as queer or works within a queer focused organization. And so some of the things that some teachers have been asked to do, like creating a book registry that might be religiously controversial to some families. I'm not aware of any queer people who have been contacted to be part of that process. And the fact that you all resolved to do it about like 5 months ago makes me wonder why you changed your mind.
20 seconds.
Most fundamentally, though, treating this court case as an excuse to marginalize queer people opens up a host of issues that I would wager you all don't even want to deal with. Like most religions frown upon things like adultery or dishonoring your parents or violence. And many of the books students read for fun and as assigned deal with stuff like that. So please proceed with caution and in a way that honors all students. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment on.
Thank you. That takes us to D9, board comments and correspondence. I'll turn it to my colleagues. Dr. Beal.
So last week, I attended a movie called Count It Out about math instruction in schools. And you may all be aware of the fact that I was first appointed to this board before I was elected. And at that time, I was interested in a lot of things, including literacy and math, and continue to be so. So last week I watched the movie and it was very interesting. And as with literacy, the themes are about individualized instruction, engaging curriculum, and actually family engagement was a big part of it. And so these are all things we think about. And so this weekend, there's going to be a presentation sponsored by the Santa Barbara Reading Coalition. And that's a group that I meet with actually once a month. And they are trying to educate the public about literacy in our schools and trying to engage people into trying to do whatever they can to assist the district. And I think family engagement is a big lever that we need to try to integrate. So they have a talk that's being given at the Faulkner Gallery this Saturday from 2 to 4. The presenter will be Todd Collins from the Palo Alto School District. And so they have literacy games and he's just going to tell his story. And I think that would be interesting for those who are interested in literacy. And so that's happening from 2 to 4 there. And I will post it on Santa Barbara Plan. I don't know if everybody subscribes to that, but there is a link to RSVP, but you can also just show up. And if you have the opportunity to see the Math Counts movie, that's interesting too. So these are just ideas. Not everything works for every school district, but I think it really starts a conversation about what everybody's role is in moving the needle on literacy and math. So I invite you to educate yourselves any way you can, but this is an opportunity here too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beal. Other board comments and correspondence?
I'll just very briefly want to say, since our last meeting, we had another meeting of the Finance Committee. We're moving through budget and learning a whole lot more about it. I want to say thanks to Conrad Tedeschi, our CBO, for coordinating that, and his staff that supports, and also say thank you to our union presidents who are representatives on that committee and members of the community, and to Celeste and I to be part of that. It's an important piece, and it involves a lot of time for preparation. I think it's going to be good work as we go. Also wanted to say that this Saturday we held a board workshop on governance items, and it was a great opportunity for our board members to have robust conversation about what's working and what isn't. And I also wanted to say thank you very much to all of the cabinet members that showed up and were part of that conversation, and to to Zitlali and the staff that helped to get all of this organized. There's nothing that happens here on weekends or evenings or at any time that doesn't take the human capital that we value so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Other board comments and correspondence? Ms. Caffrey.
First off, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who came to Trustee Beals and my community coffee and conversations. It's always great to get to speak to you in a more informal setting. So I hope we have more of those through the year. I want to echo a couple of things Trustee Banning said about both our finance committee and governance meeting. I think both were extremely productive, and I appreciate everyone's time who participated in them. Also, since our last board meeting, I went to an amazing VADA talk. It was my first talk I attended at VADA on AI and art, and they will have several more through the year. And then with Trustee Beal, I attended Count It Out, the math movie. And with our assistant superintendent of school finance and Dr. Maldonado, we went to the Schools for Sound Finance meeting, which is a group that serves community funded districts. So that's all I have for this.
Thank you, Ms. Caffrey. Ms. Munoz, do you have a board comments or correspondence? Not this week. So brief just updates. Since the last meeting, we had the CABA retreat. So I've been corrected about how to pronounce it. And so now I pronounce it CABA retreat. And it was a very productive meeting. It was our first meeting with the expanded group with community members and students. And I can tell you the student perspective was centered quite a bit in our discussions, and it added a lot to the group. And I'm really excited to continue to work with them. We have another meeting in a couple of weeks, I believe. So really excited about the expanded group. It was the right decision. And Dr. Pettigrew is the right leader, and she keeps us moving forward. So I appreciate that. I want to say congrats to the DP mock trial team on their big win in the Empire mock trial competition. So back-to-back wins for them in Philadelphia. I like to think I added some good luck because I went to the tryouts, but Ms. Kreshock can tell you if I was or not. I don't know. But all jokes aside, that's a huge accomplishment, and big congrats to everyone that supported that team and to all the students. There was a great independent article about it. And the photographer, whoever they were fantastic. They caught these amazing candids. If you haven't seen them right after they announced the winner, it's some of my favorite pictures. And so big congrats to them. A big thank you to the board, to the staff, cabinet members, anyone who supported Saturday's board study session. It was a frank, honest conversation that I think was quite productive and really good for us as we move forward in the school year. Last, I attended, along with Dr. Beal and Dr. Maldonado, the Dyslexia Awareness Month event that was at the Santa Barbara Library. It was an art exhibit put on by Sherry Ray and Moni DeWitt, and it was a compelling picture exhibit in one of the wings of the Faulkner Gallery. just displaying people locally and beyond, and just their compelling stories of folks with dyslexia that have really led lives that are inspiring to everyone, whether you have dyslexia or not. And I just want to thank them for all of their advocacy and showing up time and time again to board meetings in the community and just educating folks in general. So big shout out to them. That is my board comment and correspondence.
I believe the exhibition from the dyslexia thing in the library goes through the month. So if you
Yes.
haven't seen it, take a moment. It's a great opportunity at the East Gallery at the Faulkner.
Yeah, thank you. That closes out our D9, and that takes us to E1. First reading and sunshining of the Santa Barbara Unified School District to reopen contract negotiations with the Santa Barbara Teachers Association. And we have Dr. Becchio. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Escobedo, board members, Superintendent Maldonado. This item is the public hearing. It'll be the first reading of this initial proposal for reopening contract negotiations with SBTA. You will see this come back to you at the next board meeting for board action. Thank you.
And we have one public comment for this item, Mr. Banning.
Yes, Charles Clow again. You still here, Charles? Here we go.
Good evening again, everyone. I'm still Charles. I'm the Political Awareness Director for Santa Barbara Teachers Association, and I'm a teacher in the district, as I referenced earlier. I just wanted to express gratitude to the board for opening negotiations so early. I think increased dialogue between the district and the SBTA can only help both sides, as well, obviously, as our students, families, and our community. As I see it, once we start negotiating, one of two things will happen. Either we'll be far apart, in which case we'll need to have started early, or we'll be able to come to agreements quickly, in which case there's no point in putting it off, right? We can just take care of business. So I'm optimistic that we can come to an agreement that'll serve everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board? Comments? I have one comment, and this is a comment for myself. Didn't talk to any of the board members. I'm happy that we were able to get everything we needed done in order to sunshine our letter. I also do want to remind folks that a part of that discussion and the rationale behind when we set the dates for sunshining our letters is there are two very important key markers and of information that we need. One in November, which is getting the tax numbers from the tax assessor's office about how much money we're going to receive for this year. And the second is the first interim report, which will come in December and provide us a far more comprehensive fiscal picture for the district. Opening up our sunshine letters at this time is a very good step for us, I believe, to start the discussions, as Mr. Clow had mentioned, and to begin to talk about even just the cost of some of the proposals and be able to exchange ideas about what the proposals will be for this year. But I do want to caution us about the fiscal items. Those will have to wait for those key pieces of information before we can actually make any large commitments. So I just wanted to say that and remind us about some of the rationale that the board had earlier this year. So with that, I'll turn it back to the board. Is there a motion? Or do we have to? Oh, no motion needed. So that's the first reading. That closes out E1, and we will go to F1, and this is the report and discussion agenda, after school program update. And we have Miss Edison. Welcome. Oh, no. All right. I like that. Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Emmett Jenkins. I'm the program coordinator for AOK After School, program that I am crazy proud of the work that we've done this school year. So I'm going to give you a little rundown. Is this how I go to the next one? All right. We are in the business in after school of eliminating barriers and bringing justice to students here in after school. We look forward to doing that on a daily basis. All right. So our students, if you look to the left, you see each of our schools that we service, which are 11. And at this point, we have 1,300, and actually that number's wrong because we are up to 1,323. Super proud of that number. It's the largest number we've ever had here in after school, new record, and we're still growing. If you look to the numbers to the right, you'll see SBCA, we've got 60% of the school in after school. Another large number, Cleveland, 54%, McKinley, 53%. So as you can see, we're doing big things. This includes each and every grade, so TK through sixth grade, and then we have La Cumbre, which is our junior high. If you look at that number, it's kind of low, but that's all right. The junior high kids at this point are a little too cool to be in after school, but we are still recruiting them to get to come out. So if you exclude La Cumbre and Adelante Charter, we have about 37% of our students in after school. So that's a relatively large number, something that I said we're extremely proud of. Our after school. So at the beginning of the school year, it looked like we would be able to get everybody in. At this point, the number continues to grow because families continue to sign up. We've got about 80% of our list enrolled with about 20% on a wait list. So like I said, I think we started the year with like 1,400 people that were on the list, and we thought that was a number we could get to, but now it's grown to like 1,900. So as you can see, the wait list does grow. There are other programs within the city that some of these wait list numbers are on. So we have Boys and Girls Club, RAP, the club, things of that nature that students do go to. So these kids aren't necessarily on a waiting list. They are in after school programs. They're just on a waiting list on ours. So 80% of the list is pretty darn good. Enrollment trends, something that we are extremely proud of. At the end of 2022-23, we only had 750 students in our program. To this day, like I said, we're at 1,323, which is a 500 student increase. Massive numbers there. And if you look at the years in between there where we've been growing, these are numbers at the end of the year. So 1,060 at the end of 2023-24. And this is in October of 25-26. So it goes to show you how much we've been growing and how much we've been, doing the work to actually get all these students in and take care of the families that need it. Four-year comparison in staffing. So back in 22-23, we had 126 staff members. Today we have 218. This job is a hourly position for our leaders that come in. So it's a yearly overturn when it comes to things. So we work hard from May through today. I scheduled some interviews today for a couple more people to interview. But as you can tell, like in 23-24, we had 151 staff members. In 24-25, we have 201. It's not me just hiring 50 more staff members. People left. So that means we have to hire even more each and every year. Last year, we had 201 staff members. We had 111 leaders return. So that means we had to hire over 100 staff members to get to the number that we're at today. I take pride in building a culture here in after school that keeps staff coming back. Not only do we, want them to come back, we want them to tell their friends about it. We want them to know, hey, this is a great place to work. And we specifically corner the market on college students because I don't know a single person in Santa Barbara that can afford to make $20 an hour and work 4 hours a day outside of college students. So we do kind of corner the market there on that, which makes our program grow. And a lot of the time we turn out a boatload of teachers as well. People that didn't even think that they wanted to be in education have now decided, hey, I want to be a teacher because I work for the AOK program. So we're extremely proud of all the work we've been doing in the staffing. Our ACES requirements for after school. A couple of points I want to point out. Our staff to student ratio, our student to staff ratio is 20-1. So any staff member that we hire works for 20 students through first through sixth grade. Programs must be planned collaboratively by stakeholders for grades 1 through 8. So the ACES funds work through 1 through 8. We must provide homework assistance and STEAM and other enrichment opportunities. ELOP, kind couple of points here, but one thing that I want to point out where I think a lot of people get it somewhat mixed up is this program is geared for TK through 6th, but our first people that we must service are our most vulnerable, which are emergent multilingual, our foster youth, our homeless youth, and our socioeconomically disadvantaged. Those are the ones that we must service first. So we get a lot of kickback from families and people that don't understand the grant. But I want to point that out that, if we have space at the end, well, once we get all these kids in, we are more than happy to help whoever needs it. But these are the people that we must help first because that's what the grant says. Like I said, we work with TKK. Those ratios are 10-1. And then our 1st through 6th are 20-1. So when you see those large numbers, we have 218 staff members. You think of a TK classroom, you got to have at least 2 students in there. Also, a lot of our college students, like I said, that work for us, we job share. So I would say 50% of our staff work Monday through Friday. The other that job share are only available Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So we have to take somebody that works Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and put them together. So our enrollment numbers are based on how we can staff this thing. And our ELOP funds only go so far. So when you look at enrichment and high-priced enrichment and things, that takes away from the families that we can serve on a daily basis. So we must hire staff, and that's where a lot of our ELOP money goes. Our enrichment partners, we have a ton. We vet each and every one of these to make sure that they are what we need and what the students will enjoy. If you look to the right, we have Explore Ecology, a couple kids playing in the dirt, pulling vegetables, pulling fruit, all those good things. A couple of ones I want to point out that I think are really, really important, not only to our community, but, to people in general. UCSB Swim to College, a completely 100% free program where our 3rd graders go to UCSB and get swimming lessons. Something that I feel like a lot of our families don't do on a regular basis. It's about opportunity and it's about access. So we want them to be able to go to the beach and be safe. Another one is the Santa Barbara tennis patrons. They are a tennis program. They come to us a couple times a week for free. They give the kids tennis rackets at the end of it. They send the kids over to UCSB to meet the tennis pros, to meet the players, all that good stuff. It's something that we have noticed that the kids really love, so we continue to bring them back. Another one that I want to highlight is after school sports. Not sure if you guys know, but the city no longer offers sports. So AOK took it upon ourselves to build a sports program. We now have football, basketball, and soccer throughout the school year. I cannot tell you how many compliments and how many thank yous we've gotten from families around here because they say there's no longer a place for our kids to play sports and they can do it here in after school and I don't have to take them to practice and I can just do it right here in after school. So something that we're very, very proud of and the things that we've done. So as you can tell, we've got a boatload there. Probably there's a few more that I've missed, but our kids stay busy. Like I said, it's about opportunity and it's about access. Some kids will play basketball for the first time. They may decide that they don't like it, but they can say, hey, back in 3rd grade, I played basketball. And then some kids were hoping that, hey, I played basketball in the 3rd grade. Now I'm playing and I'm the star of the high school team. You know what I'm saying? So very, very important enrichment partners. These are a couple of pictures of our kids. Upper top left, you'll see our Santa Barbara tennis patrons. Those are the tennis rackets that they get. They get to take them home. Very, very excited. And they, like I said, they do this every year and kids are so, so excited when the tennis patrons come around. Bottom left, those are our basketball champions from Franklin Elementary, 1st through 3rd grade, as you can tell. Pretty big team, a lot of kids that are getting exposure to the game. The upper middle there, you'll see our dance showcase that we do yearly. This past 2 years, we've done it out at the Sunken Gardens. It's usually done in May. So what we do is we take all of our arts and we put them on a stage to show families and show parents exactly what these students have been doing throughout the year. It'll be in early May. We usually plan it pretty early. And so I hope to see some of you guys there to help support us this coming up school year. Right below, you'll see a young lady in the pool, obviously having a great time at UCSB. And then to the bottom right, I want to point out there's a student there DJing. You don't necessarily see that everywhere. So like I said, we're about opportunity. We're about access. This might be the next Marshmello or Steve Aoki. You never know. So if we bring these things to our students and give them the option to say, yes, I really like that, or no, I don't like it, at least we know, you know what I'm saying? So who knows when Steve Aoki started? He could have started just like this. I don't know. But at the same time, it's a beautiful thing to see. And we love to see each and every kid, you know, come out and try and decide if they want to do these things. And then our ELOP grant it requires us to operate an extra 30 days throughout the school year. So we do this throughout the summer where families need it the most. So we provided a summer program, and this is just a couple of our, you know, field trip partnerships and enrichment partnerships, Bolero, movie theaters, the pool. We do all kinds of stuff. Also, we use a lot of our staff to provide you know, their expertise in a lot of things too. We have a lot of artists, we have a lot of guitar players, we have a lot of soccer stars, whatever you want that you know, work with us. One thing I want to point out, I don't know if any of you guys have been to the bowling alley lately, but it is crazy expensive, super expensive. And so some of these kids have never been to the bowling alley. And so as you can tell, these kids are having a great time, enjoying themselves. One of the most talked about things that we did this summer was go to the bowling alley. They didn't want to leave. And actually, we take pride in our program. We have a lot of criers. And when I say we have a lot of criers, it's not because they're upset. It's because when parents are coming to pick the kids up, they don't want to go home. So we are doing our best to provide the best opportunities and doing our best to just make sure all the kids have fun while they're there. And so I appreciate all of you guys, you know, taking the time to listen. I did bring you some AOK swag, a couple sweatshirts, a couple t-shirts. You guys, I don't know what sizes you are, but hopefully they fit. Outside of that, that's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
You're welcome.
Looks like we're gonna have to fight over some t-shirts and sweatshirts. Do we have any public comment for this item?
Virtual comment from Brianna Serrato.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to start off by saying my children and I have loved the AOK after school and summer school program when they attended. My son has attended the after school program, the full day Gen Ed summer school, SOL summer of learning program, half day special education summer school, ESY extended school year, and last summer's hybrid program of ESY the first half of the day with SOL for the second half of the day. As I mentioned in public comment at the board meeting on July 22nd, while the district has made improvements towards equity and inclusion for students with disabilities with the AOK programming, there is still work to be done. The first being the fact that while SOL and ESY start on the same date, ESY ends a week earlier. While I thought it may have been due to funding, California Code of Regulations 5 CCR 30431D states that an extended year program shall be provided for a minimum of 20 instructional days, including holidays. It further states in D2 that for reimbursement purposes, a maximum of 30 instructional days excluding holidays shall be allowed. So in case the reason ESY ended a week earlier was due to staff contracts, I suggest having that be a topic of discussion in the upcoming contract negotiations. The second is with regards to the timing of the enrichment opportunities for both the on-campus programming and field trips. Unfortunately, the field trips and possibly the community enrichment partner programming were only scheduled in the first half of the day, thus excluding the ESY students. Thankfully for my son, I was informed of the field trips and was able to ask for him to leave ESY early to attend the field trip to the movie theater. Unfortunately, that information wasn't shared with the ESY teacher to inform other parents, so he was the only one in his class that was able to attend. Sadly, he wasn't able to attend the field trip to Bolero, which he was so excited about, due to it being the week after ESY ended. My son and I look forward to the continued improvements for next summer, as the AOK portion of the SOL program was the highlight for him 2 years ago. The attached memo states the program also includes one-on-one paraeducator support to serve students with disabilities who need additional assistance beyond AOK's traditional structure. We are committed to ensuring equitable access and opportunities for all students. However, when the board followed up on my public comment of having paras available so students are not excluded based on their disability for AOK after school, the district replied that since it is not part of the regular school day, they did not have to provide para support. At the SEEK Special Education Advisory Committee meeting on September 24th, parent was in tears asking about para support for AOK as their kindergartner was suspended due to behavioral concerns without that additional support. The district staff stated that they are not providing paraprofessionals for AOK, but they are now providing training to AOK staff on how to help support the students with disabilities in the program, and that many paras are also work as AOK group leaders. So is the quoted paragraph missing the qualifier that it is only for the summer program? Or is the district truly following through to ensure the equitable access and opportunities for its students with disabilities in regards to the year-round AOK programming by providing one-on-one paraeducators when needed after school? Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments.
Thank you. I'll turn it back to the board for any questions that you have. Ms. Munoz.
I just have a report about the AOK. My nephew, who's 6, attends Theo Berumen, and he loves it. His mom said he really enjoys going, and he always asks to be picked up late. So thank you so much to everyone.
Other questions from the board? Trustee Caffrey? Oh, Trustee Beal.
I just have a quick question. This really comes from an email that was sent to me. Is the TKK part of the program available at all schools? Something, or is it something we're working on? I'm not sure. I know that you mentioned it.
Yes, it is available at every school.
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead, Trustee Caffrey.
So I just want to start by saying that AOK sounds like an incredible program with so much enrichment opportunities and great partners, and sounds very joyful. My question is, and here I just want to explain a little bit of my intent behind the question. So I'm a mom of 3. I have a lot of friends who have young kids who need childcare after school. I talk to a lot of community members. And so my question is, right now AOK is serving 37% of our kids, which is, I see a huge increase every year. I'm wondering, do we have a plan to expand after school programming beyond AOK? And what are we thinking about? Because I know many people are saying, I have to rush home from my job, get my grandma, get grandma to pick up, or a babysitter. Yeah.
Right now, our focus is AOK, and that's including the ACES and ELOB grant and our requirements for those grants. We do not have conversations right now about program that's not AOK funded by ACES and ELOB.
So I guess I wonder if at some point we are going to start thinking about programs that are funded by parents, where parents can pay to have their children participate in after-school programming, because it seems like there's very high demand for this kind of amazing enrichment. And yeah.
So I just want to remind the board, when you asked previously for the after-school program report, I asked for grace to allow us to implement our program as we had planned, and then we would come back and assess the needs beyond that. So we're in implementation right now, and as you can see, there's been a great start, and we will have other conversations when they come up, and we'll bring back more information. But for right now, we're really focusing on quality of programming and scaling up AOK as it currently stands.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mr. Vasquez.
So you mentioned that the AOK program prioritizes students with EMLs, the foster youth, homeless youth, and socioeconomically disadvantaged students. But that also there's 20% of students on the waiting list this year. And I'm just wondering if that 20% includes, that group of students, or if those students are, already within the program. And, if not, if the waiting list is, really shrinking. Yeah.
So the waiting list, I mean, truthfully, there's not very many people left on the waiting list. And so for the most part, it's all of the people that fit under the category are into the program. If they signed up like within the last 4 weeks or so, they may still be on the waiting list, just because we filled those spots with people that don't fit the criteria, if that makes sense. So we do our best once we see if somebody comes and say they move here from somewhere else and they fit the criteria, we do our best to make sure that they get into the program. But like I said, we don't withhold any spots based on, you know, what am I trying to say here? We don't withhold spots and say, you know, hey, yeah. We don't withhold spots. If we get to the point where we have 20 spots available and we have the staff to bring in those non-qualifiers, more than welcome. But we do take care of those first, if that answers your question. Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Any comments? Dr. Beal.
So I am also super pleased to see the opportunities that are provided at all the schools. So I have heard from schools that didn't have good, robust after-school programs, and this has been like a gift for those families and for those parents, the children and the parents. So I think that it was a really great idea and the way the funding is managed. I will kind of reflect a little bit. So, we had this nice governance meeting this weekend. And, one of the things that was said is that how do we have conversations in this boardroom that really are about trying to answer questions that we think are important without making it sound like something is broken or something's not working or it's somebody's fault. So I'm going to ask the question this way. So when my children were young, I was a working mom. And it was incredibly difficult to leave my office at 2 o'clock or 2:30 or 3 to pick up my children. And it's good to hear that students are learning to swim who would have no opportunity to do that. So definitely the population that we're serving is getting a great benefit out of this program. But when I look at after-school programs, it's not just students, but it's families. And after-school programs really serve families a benefit. And when I talk about going to the Count It Out movie or to literacy things, one of the things we talk about is what is the family's role in taking care of students and being with them and teaching them. And so I think of after-school programs in a community that's very expensive, that generally where there are 2 working parents, that it gives that family a little bit more capacity to do what they need to do to survive in this community and then to be with their children in a really productive way. And that's what it was for me. I was fortunate that I had my husband, my mother-in-law live with us. So she 3 days a week would go pick up the kids so I could be at my office a little bit longer. But it was tough and it was hard. And sometimes if you're rushing around and your day ends, so I would be up at 5 to answer emails from my patients, and then I would be awake after 9. So having an hour actually was so wonderful. And to think that of my children being at their school with their friends was really of some value. So I know that we are building this program, and I'm hoping that moving forward, that it is hard to have employees, it is difficult to arrange these programs, but that we also think about everybody in our community and the fact that after-school programs serve a very specific function for our parents. It gives them a little bit more time, a little bit more capacity. If they have 2 children who get out of school at different times, the ability to make one trip to school, and that we take those things into account and we try to see how we can build that capacity. So that would be my comment.
Thank you. Other comments from the board? Mr. Banny.
Just a brief thank you. Appreciate the presentation and the background information on this, and just something as simple as looking at the growth over time of your staff and then being pointed to the reminder that that's not just new people, that's turnover, that's everyone else. So I always want to remind people that everything that we're doing here has layers of complexity that don't appear to be such at the beginning. And I appreciate very much the work that you're doing in support of our children and our community. Thank you.
Ms. Munoz.
Yes, when you said the numbers of employees that you have, well, first of all, the overall number, and then the new trainees and so staff that you train, and the scheduling issues and so forth. Just thank you, thank you, thank you for that. I worked in a few years ago, 3 years ago, I worked for a while for a few years at a residential home where primarily it was students that staffed it. And, you know, those last minute calls with like, you got a cold, this and that, and over, you know, and on like the day before Thanksgiving and things like that, you know, and last minute shift changes and whatnot. So thank you so much. I'm certainly aware of all that you do. I just didn't know you had like 100 new employees. Oh my God.
Any other comments? Thank you so much for the presentation and all you do for our students and our families. Thank you. So that closes out this item. Yeah, we can clap. We will move to F2, recognize, respond, report, the 3 R's update. And this is Ms. Atchison.
Yes, yes.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's been a while since I've been at the podium presenting. I'm sharing out our data from start of school to last week around the 3 R's. So I'll have to go ahead and get started. You'll see this slide and not a lot because it is where we're centering our work. Equity had its place in time. We are moving towards justice. How do we create a just system where we eliminate barriers, where students, regardless of where they are in our system, have what they need when they need it from whom they need it? So this slide is just a depiction of that. So you'll see that frequent and often because it's rooted in our work that we do. I do want to just highlight that what I'll be talking about today really is in alignment with what the board has already identified as one of your priority areas. We know we do all the work of the district, but these are just the 4 priority areas that we've lifted up. Belonging and community is big. You heard a lot of public comment today about that. I do want to recognize the work that was done before me on by Steve Enns, Anna Pilhofer, and Ed Zucchelli on how promoting 3 R's and making sure that it was accessible to all folks, having a website for it, sending out the communication over and over and over to our staff and families, because that's where we get this data from. I also want to acknowledge the work of the Combating Anti-Blackness Work Group prior to it becoming CABA, really pushing for more folks reporting besides just principals. So we got a real accurate look of the trends that were happening across the district. So tonight is just again from the start of school to last Friday. What you can see here is the royal blue is elementary, that aqua blue is junior high schools, and the high school is that fluorescent green. Anti-Blackness is still one of our highest reported hate bias subjects that have come through, with 4 of them being that, and you can see they were represented at all grade levels. The others I'll speak to because as you can see, you have 2 others. You have the full report in front of you, but those 2 others did not fall in any of those classes. One of it was a student making a report that other students during lunchtime were saying inappropriate things, but nothing that fell into any of the areas that we identified. It was adolescents being adolescents. And another was a teacher reporting that they were bumped by another teacher in the hallway, right? So that's why they're classified under other. This to me is a actually place of growth. When we look at who's doing the reporting, they're coming from all of our stakeholders. And that's important because we know that every set of eyes is an opportunity for us to get it right. We want to celebrate progress and not perfection. This is progress. We have students reporting. 40% of the reports that came in were from students, which are great. But we also had volunteers on campus, after school staff, teacher staff, and parents because it has been made accessible. And that really is true testament to the work that happened last year under accountability and in our communications department. Of those things I reported, 7 of those were towards another person, which means it was a target of it. And then other 2 of those were just in general, things that are said out loud. And then one of them are neither. So it is important for us to understand that we want every set of eyes in our district to see harm and to do exactly what the name of this report is, to recognize it, to respond in the moment and report it. And this tells us that that's happening. The responses by each incident shows that you can see 37% of those, someone responded in the moment, right? I was on my way to do something else. I saw this and I intervened. That's important, and I want to celebrate that, because the message that it's all our responsibility to create safe spaces. And when we say safe, we mean physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially safe. And so people are responding in the moment, and that's great and appropriate. People are assisting those who are harmed, which is what we really also want to do, is to make sure that the folks who are being targeted in any particular situation are supported. And we all can do that just by walking alongside someone, intervening, and telling them I see them by intervening. Administrators were notified. We have, as you know, in this district, ripple effects. You'll hear that a lot. That's an intervention for social emotional learning for targeted behavior. We have about 400 modules in there that young people can access to learn about the impact of their actions, how to change the behavior, and also just to work at home on developing the skill set. So we're excited about that. That's not to mention that all of our staff also are prepared. We have social emotional learning curriculum in all of our schools. That is a tier 1 strategy, and it really is the pre-work for all of this. So in looking at the 10 reports that came in since the beginning of the school year, here's the analysis that I have for you, that we still have work to do around combating anti-Blackness and the impacts that it has on our students. And it isn't just Black students who are harmed, it harms the overall community when these things are happening. We should celebrate the awareness for 3 Rs, because it's being used by everyone, all of our constituents, and that is evidenced by the reports, and it really has everything to do with the work that was done last year on this. And that hate bias incidents are being recognized and responded to. Again, progress, not perfection. I don't know if it's a realistic expectation that we'll ever have 0, but we should always, if there is an incident, have that there was someone who recognized it, responded, and reported it, and showed support to the student or staff member or other adult that was the target. So that's my report. Thank you so much for your time, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Edison.
You're so welcome.
Do we have any public comment for this item?
Yes, virtual comment from Brianna Serrato.
Hello again. So one of my questions was actually answered already as to what is the date range for the numbers shown on the slideshow, as they are much lower than the numbers reported in the attached memo. However, my other questions were something that's been asked numerous times at a district committee meeting has been how many of the 3R incidents that have been reported over the last 2 years, and also how many of those from this year met criteria for UCP follow-up or filing? And also, is there any overlap with the Safe to Speak app with regards to racism-based reportings? And if so, how is that being shown, and how is that being reported? Since there are 3 different systems. We have the 3Rs, we have the Safe to Speak app, and then we also have the UCP filings. So how do we get a clear picture of what's going on over wide in general, when something might be reported in this but not reported in that, and the reports to the board are broken up based on the specific apps or the specific procedures? And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'll turn it back to the board for any questions that they have. Ms. Caffrey?
Thank you very much for that report. There's much to celebrate. And I think it's amazing that there is so much more understanding in the community about the 3R app. So that is wonderful. My question is basically, if we link 3R and school climate, how the board can kind of understand what is happening at each school in terms of safety and belonging, the whole picture.
Yeah, great question. I'm excited that part of the student outcomes report that'll be coming here shortly is also going to include the panorama survey. We just closed it last Friday. And again, we're always looking for progress in there. And not only by overall, but by subgroup. So I'll be sharing that information with as part of the student outcomes report that's coming up. We just closed it on Friday. So we have over 10,000 of our students, grades 3 through 12, who've shared their own experiences, spoke for themselves about how they're experiencing school campuses, how they're experiencing the adults in their lives, whether on campus and off. So it's very good information. And it really goes across all the different areas of our district.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from the board? I have a question, Miss Edison, before you go sit down.
Absolutely.
Can you just give us like a brief summary of the Safe to Speak app versus the 3Rs versus the UCP process?
Absolutely. So the Safe to Speak Up app is on every student device, and they have access to report at the school site. The conversation that came out of the Combating Anti-Blackness Work Group, now CABA, was really about anonymous reporting and if students felt, or students or staff or whomever felt safe to report, which is why it's now open and any and everyone can report, and you don't have to be a student in this district to report something that you've observed. So they serve different purposes. The Safe to Speak Up app can be anything on campus, whereas the 3Rs is really targeted for hate bias. If something comes through the Safe to Speak Up app, principals still have access to add it to this report, and the UCP is completely different from that.
And if something gets reported in either the Safe to Speak Up app or the 3Rs that meets a UCP threshold, we report it through the UCP process. Is that correct?
Families are given the opportunity to file a UCP complaint. So if they felt that the matter was resolved satisfactorily at the school site, the needs of those harmed who was met, the school was responsive, they followed up, they may elect not to file a UCP complaint because they feel it was resolved. They may also feel, based on age of students, ability of students, that they may not want to pursue that formal process. We have the authority, and I'm the UCP compliance officer for the district, if we find that something is egregious and pervasive, to file a UCP anyways and doing a full investigation. So the principals, the first point of contact, inform families of their right to file a complaint. Families can say yes or no.
Thank you for clarifying.
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Mr. Vasquez?
I'm just wondering if there's anything that we're doing to kind of push awareness of these apps. I know that there are definitely students who feel passionate about combating these issues and would definitely speak up and just maybe aren't aware of how easy it is to do that. And I'm wondering if there's anything we can do or that we are doing to push that awareness.
Yeah, our communications, Ed Zucchelli, is very proactive in getting it in the hands of parents and students. The superintendent has also sent out communication to all stakeholders, staff, families, and students with awareness and reminding folks of So one is an app, which are on devices. The other is a Google form, which is monitored here at the district office, and UCP. Our new website that was also pushed out by the superintendent to everyone, and as Zucchelli multiple times, has all of the information in one space. So if our community members want to have easy access to them because they're not on a campus where a QR code is, they also have access to it. We've also sent this information out to our community partners who are on our campuses, so they also know about these ways to report, both that are anonymous and those that are tied to devices.
Ms. Caffrey?
My question is to follow up on Carlos's question. If Carlos do you have ideas, I guess, about, do you talk to students about how they access information and potential ideas for reaching them?
So we have had conversations with students through the Superintendent's Advisory Council. I've not had a conversation this year. 3Rs have just moved back under Student and Family Services, and I'm always open for feedback. Yeah.
Dr. Beal?
This is also kind of a question for Carlos. put you on the spot, Carlos. If I remember correctly, and we watched a little movie today, all of the secondary schools are now have media programs. I know at DP, they'd have like a media hour, right? This during their passing periods or whatever, or their homeroom period. So do you think that talking about this at the beginning of the school year on their programs would be the best way to reach students?
Yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind when I was thinking about pushing awareness, is just having, something, whether it's, not just some, sort of area where students can go to, like a QR code on campus or someone that they can reach, but actually, whether it's, honestly, I think consistent reach out throughout the year, not just once at the beginning of the year. But yeah, that's definitely a great start, would be pushing that through. We have all our mediums of, I think, good mediums of, Royal Report, all that kind of stuff at different schools, that could be a viable option, I think.
I would say I'm a big fan of students making media for themselves. And so now that they have $3,000 cameras, like, let them make a funny little video for their, actually showing somebody go through it. I mean, I think it could be a fun project. So I think that is probably a good way of reaching them.
And Carlos, you're in good company. Your previous student board member did videos around mental health with the Student Advisory Council. We can share those videos with you. They also did some we. I'm trying to remember the phrase. That was student board members ago. But exactly what the trustee is saying, that you all have been more creative than we ever could be. And I'm open to support if that's something you want to take on.
And I believe we just pulled up the website, the webpage that has all the information.
Yeah, Ezu Kelly's been doing a great job with adapting. As you know, education is a complex system. Nothing stays the same overnight. And there isn't a one fix for anything. And so as questions come in and responses come in, he's been really good about updating this so that we can send this link out to community. He and the superintendent has really made this their pet babies. And there's tons of information to be found on here in English and Spanish, links to all the schools, Safe to Speak Up app, links to subscribe, our Title IX, our UCP website, how to file a complaint in HR, emergency situations, like everything is on this one page so that we are really staying focused on community and giving them the information they need in one touch, one click.
Thank you. Last question, I promise.
No worries.
This is about reporting. And one thing that has come up in the CABA meetings is building capacity in our teachers and staff to address the situations. Can you speak a little bit to our efforts to build capacity in our teachers and staff?
Yeah, I do want to just point out it is October. So not much has gone on at the start of this year, but there's a lot of work that happened last year. There were 4 modules, I believe 4, that was rolled out last year, having conversations around how to respond in the moment. It also isn't just about 3 R's. It's also about what's happening in the classrooms. So how do we engage around conversations? A couple of the questions that are asked in Panorama is gauging if people feel that they have the skill set to address an issue in their classroom, if any of this comes up. So we're looking at progress in that number to measure growth. No one will always say 100% they feel comfortable addressing every topic, but we want them to understand their responsibility to do so. So we had a lot of work around our culture of care and our obligation as adults in our system to provide safe spaces, which means we intervene when we see things that shouldn't be happening. And so as far as a separate effort from school to October 1st, nothing particular has happened outside of our culture of care rollout, which really honed in that we all have a responsibility to respond in the moment, whether it's immigration or other things. We did roll out the 3 R's again, meaning promote it to your staff, make sure the posters are up everywhere around campus, revisit it. We gave a script to teach principals on how to engage on that first day of school. We have not gotten to the place of all staff training. We'll embed that, but it'll be embedded in everything we do because it isn't something separate and different. It applies to everyone. We have job alike meetings every week all the time, all month, a lot. We have 13 of them in Student Family Services alone. So they're embedded in scenarios. We do a lot of that with our deans and APs who are over climate culture so that they learn from each other and they get the skill set in the moment. And those are things that we'll continue to do, but we'll figure out a more robust way to embed it in any time we have teachers and other staff on campus.
No, that's perfect. And I meant like in general, and last year we did a lot of that work, I do know.
Yes,
So thank you for highlighting those. Any other questions? All right. Yeah, Dr. Maldonado.
I do want to thank Dr. Beal for giving us a lot of feedback on the website. I know that you gave a lot of great feedback. I know Mr. Banning has given a lot of great feedback. And I know I met with a parent that Trustee Caffrey had me meet, which prompted a lot of the ideas around how to organize information. Carlos, we met with students a lot on how to organize mental health resources so that they could understand it. But Ed and I are always looking for a different way to share information so that people can see it the way they need to see it, not the way we think it should be pushed out. So we always ask the question that way. We heard from students, for example, last year that just putting up a flyer on the wall, which is what I did when I was in high school, doesn't work with this generation. So I just want to encourage everyone and anyone who has ideas for improving our website to please let us know, myself or Mr. Zuccalli. But for those of you that have been giving feedback, thank you.
Great. Any comments from the board? Ms. Munoz?
Just have one comment. Ms. Edison, you rock. Thank you so much from how, we started with this way back and how everyone has contributed, our President Escobedo for attending the committee and such. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure Wendy Sims Mountain's going to be happy to hear. She's waiting for a text back from me. Thank you.
Other comments? Just thank you. And thank you to the committee. Thank you to everyone in the district that supports this work. It is a lot of people that go into this. One of the things that you can't prepare like people to address every situation, but it's about making sure that they have the resources and the support to be able to address them. And the scenarios with deans and APs, that's huge. Having someone to lean on to navigate some tough situations sometimes on campus, close to you, they don't always have to go to the district, is really, really big. So I want to say thank you for all that work. And that closes out F2, and we're moving to F3. The report and discussion on the special education update. Welcome, Ms. Curry. Dr. Curry.
Good evening, board and Dr. Maldonado. My name is Carla Curry, and I am the proud special education director for Santa Barbara Unified School District. So this evening, I'm going to highlight our 4 focus areas over the past 2 years and just give you an update to where we are now in our district in regards to special education. Okay. So in regards to our focus areas, we have high quality instruction, IEP compliance, increased family engagement, and collaboration with our ed services on disproportionality. So I will be providing details in regards to these focus areas that myself, my amazing team member, we have our SEEK rep here as well, that we've all been working on over the past 4 years in order to improve special education in Santa Barbara Unified for our students and families. Okay, as we've all discussed in our slides in Student and Family Services, we really do work for justice for all students, identifying barriers, and then removing barriers so that all students have access to what they need at any school site at any given time, regardless of whether they have a disability or not. And so we in special education definitely are working towards that as well for our students and families. In regards to our focus areas that I'm going to discuss tonight, all of those areas were based on data that we worked to collect and then really identifying what we need as a district in special education to move forward and to do better for our students and families. And with that, we're working to build capacity within our schools to lead special education, which will produce better results for our students and families within the district. In honor of IDEA's 50th anniversary, I'd like to take a minute to speak to person first language. Person first language puts the individual's humanity before the disability. So as I speak tonight, I'll be using person first language. Really, it's just adding a few extra words. So instead of saying a disabled person, you would say a person with a disability. So that's how the disability community would like to be spoken about. And it really does help eliminate barriers and promote inclusivity within our district. Okay, so we have 1,800 students in Santa Barbara Unified who have an IEP or identified with a disability. Within the state of California, there are 13 eligibility categories in order to qualify for special education. In Santa Barbara Unified, we have 11 of those disability categories represented in this graph. The only two that are missing are deaf blindness and deafness. So as you can see, our highest area of eligibility is specific learning disability, with about 40% of our students qualifying in that area. Second to that, we have other health impairment. So typically students who have ADD, ADHD, or any other health condition would qualify under other health impairment. And then close third and fourth areas of eligibility are speech and language impairment at 13.4% and autism at 14.7%. And the others kind of fall in line as not quite like, for example, vision impairment, hearing impairment, traumatic brain injury are low incidence disabilities. So you see that our numbers are quite a bit smaller in those areas. So in all, we have 1,800 students in our district, and this is the breakdown of how they qualify for special education. And I just want to remind the board, in order to qualify for special education, you might have a disability like autism, but if it's not impacting your educational performance, then there's no need for specialized services. So if you have, dyslexia, but it's not impacting your learning, you wouldn't qualify. So these are students who have qualified because their disability does impact their learning and their access to their education. Okay. So within Santa Barbara Unified School District, we have 6 specialized programs that we offer our 1,800 students that are eligible for specialized services under IDEA. We have our preschool inclusion at Franklin Children's Center and at Harding Elementary School. So those house our 2 preschool programs. We have our preschool extensive support needs program at Franklin's Children's Center. So that program is about half and half inclusion and half where the students are in the special education classroom working on their IEP goals. Students with extensive supports needs typically have those are students who have the most significant needs in our district, typically have cognitive, intellectual impairments, sometimes physical impairments, and sometimes behavioral, social, emotional needs that are all combined. So we do have a preschool extensive support needs program at Franklin's Children's Center. We have our mild moderate support needs program. That's our largest program in the district. As you can see, we have 1,453 students that are represented in that program across all of our school campuses. And 80% of those 1,453 are educated in the general education classroom. So they get their needs met in the general education classroom with support and services that help them access their education. We have our extensive support needs program, TK through 12. Again, students who have the most extensive support needs are in this program. Across all of our district. We have 18 teachers, 174 students. And as you can see, the paraeducator support is a bit higher just because the needs of those students encompass many areas in addition to cognition, physical impairments, and then also social, emotional, behavioral support for those students. So it is staffed to support those needs of those students. We have our GROW program, which is our therapeutic learning program. So helping in supporting our students who have emotional disabilities. That's offered in grades 7 through 12. And then we have our transition program. So those students who are in our extensive support needs program, as they graduate high school, they're entitled to an additional 4 years of service by the school district. So the focus of our transition programs are looking at independent living skills, employment skills, and community-based instruction to help them have an inclusive and productive life after high school. You can see we currently have 78 students in that program. 90% of our budget goes towards staffing. I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. We do have 500 staff members in our special education department, about 85 teachers, 100 support providers, PTs, OTs, BCBAs, school psychologists, and then we have 300 paraeducators. So we have a very large staff. And so building capacity is something that we're working on doing, but it does take time with a staff that large and 1,800 students that we're working to support. Okay, high quality instruction. That's our first focus area, and it lies with our Santa Barbara Unified Instructional Framework. So our curriculum adoption, which 2 years ago, Teachtown curriculum was adopted by the board to support the alternate pathway to a high school diploma for our students in our extensive support needs programs. That program, Teachtown, is used with our high school extensive support needs teachers to support the students in those programs to help them graduate with a high school diploma. And then our unique learning system curriculum is for our students TK through 8th grade. Again, it's a modified curriculum based on the standard course of study for students in our extensive support needs programs TK through 8th grade. Our literacy intervention, as I spoke of a few board meetings ago, we recently, last year, trained 26 of our mild to moderate support needs teachers in the Wilson Reading System. That was a 3-day training that was provided last school year. We had 2 new teachers we brought aboard this year, and so we have continued to train those teachers by giving them a self-paced course in the Wilson Reading System so we can bring them up to speed. We also offer monthly PLCs for our elementary mild moderate support needs teachers and then our secondary mild moderate support needs teachers with a Wilson Reading Literacy Specialist. So she meets with each of those grade bands for an hour a month to help support implementation of the program and answer any questions they might have. And we've also partnered with Wilson Reading System. They provided our district with 4 practicum experiences for 4 of our teachers. We have 3 elementary school teachers and 1 secondary teacher that are taking part in that practicum this school year, which consists of 155 hours of instruction on the science of reading, and also they have a student that they'll focus on for the school year and providing the curriculum to them and with guidance and support through the practicum. When they finish those 155 hours, they're awarded a Wilson Reading Specialist identification and also a Wilson Dyslexia Practitioner certificate as well. So they will have completed that, and it's building capacity within our district to help support those students with the most intensive reading difficulty needs. So typically students who would receive the Wilson Reading System are those students where strategies and interventions have not worked, and so they need a more structured literacy program. So that program are supporting those students. Our math intervention has been a collaboration with Ed Services. This school year, we're really proud and seeing some great results. In the past, we've had II classes at the high school level for students with IEPs, which is more of a study skills class where they were able to come in and get support from the special education teacher on various subjects. This year, we're really honing in on targeted instruction in Math 1. So now we have Math 1 II, which is specifically targeted for the Math 1 curriculum. Our special education teachers are providing pre-teaching activities in the Math 1 II class as the students are taking Math 1. So they're getting exposure to the curriculum before it's taught in Math 1. And so we're really looking forward to the outcomes of the students in Math 1. This is in progress at all of our 3 comprehensive high schools. And so our II Math 1 teachers are co-teaching with the Math 1 general education teacher, and they're also teaching that Math 1 II course. So we're really looking forward to the outcomes and hoping that students see success with this targeted instruction for Math 1. And lastly, at our high school, we have co-taught classes in English, math, and physics, which provides additional opportunities for inclusion for our students who are in our mild to moderate support needs programs. All right, our second focus area is IEP compliance. This is something that we've really been working hard on in finding ways to monitor the data. We hold 9 different JABA-like meetings each month. our school psychologists, our admin designees, our AP deans, our speech and language pathologists, our paraeducators. And within the job alikes, we provide information and strategies and supports in order to ensure that we are compliant with our IEPs. We on a monthly basis monitor the timelines of each school site in regards to their IEPs, and that is shared with our administration, with our admin designees, with our case managers and our support providers, and working to ensure that those IEPs are held on time each month. And within our job-alike meetings, we're providing additional information in different areas that we see through IEP audits or CUME file reviews or different areas of professional development that we can provide each month to help support the capacity of our staff and also to build their skills as they work to support our students and families. So in regards to compliance, last year we ended the school year at 88%, which was a 3% increase from the previous school year. And to date now we're at 98.9%. So our goal is 95%, total for the school year. 100% would be nice, but we're looking for progress, not perfection, as Kenny would say. But our administrators, our program facilitators, our case managers are really working hard to ensure that meetings are held on time. And this year, and I'll go into it in the next slide, through our findings through audits and attending IEP meetings, working with case managers and our administrators, there's a few things we're really going to focus on this school year. Just our inconsistent practice of IEP meeting notices to families is an area that we're focusing on. Incomplete IEP meeting notes, our progress reports being provided to families on a consistent basis. And then paraeducators requested without a process informed by data. So one way that we're working to address these areas is we're utilizing our amazing Joanna Powell, our general counsel. Will be providing a 3-hour legally defensible IEPs professional development session on October 20th for all of our special education staff. So this is going to be the first time that we've brought them all together and really honed in on what we need to work on as a district. And we're taking baby steps. There's a lot of things. There's over 700 different procedural mistakes you can make on an IEP. So we're picking 4 this year. 4 of the bigger ones we're noticing that we need to really support. So through that professional development, we're hoping to educate our staff. And with that, we'll continue to monitor how we're doing. And then we're able to provide individual, kind of like we do with students, targeted support for various case managers who might need additional help in implementing these strategies to ensure that we're doing the best by students and families. So through this, we're able to build capacity within our district for our case managers and also our system as a whole, having consistent procedures in place across the district. Like I said, with 1,800 students and 500 staff, that's a lot of people to make sure we're all on the same page. So we work really hard to ensure that everyone understands what their responsibilities are. And if they need help and support, we provide that for them. And then progress monitoring is something that we do each and every month, sharing that with our administrators, our case managers, to ensure they understand what needs to be done to ensure that our students receive a free and appropriate public education. And then just giving that feedback and coaching, just like we do for our students who struggle. We do have teachers who struggle in areas, so we work with our administrators to help support those teachers as well. And then just elevating our staff. We have some really amazing staff within our special education department. So bringing them to the front line and having them provide professional development and supporting the staff really goes a long ways. All right, this is one of my favorite areas, increasing family engagement. SEEK, our Special Education Advisory Committee, meets 4 times a year. I'm proud to announce that this is the first time that we've had a site representative at every school site. We also do have now for the first time in preschool for our transition program and our alt ed program. We now have representatives in those areas as well. We had our first site representative training this school year to train our site reps on how to bring the information they get at the district SEEK meetings back to the school site to inform their school families and to collaborate with their site principals to hold meetings at their site to really address the individual and kind of school issues that are happening at the district level. We don't focus on individual student issues or concerns. We focus on the district as a whole. And so I'll talk a little bit about some of the recommendations that have come out of SEEK because of that. And then each school, hopefully this school year with our representatives will hold quarterly meetings. So September, we had our meeting. Dr. Buell is on our committee or attends our committee meetings as a member. And so the representatives brings back that information that we provide at our September 24th meeting, I believe. We have changed up kind of how we've done SEEK. In the past, we've met here at the district office. This year, our 4 meetings are at different school sites. So we invite the principal to come. Principal Ed Gomez presented on Santa Barbara High School special education program. So our members were able to get a little taste of what other schools are doing. So helps educate them on special education across the district, not just at their school. And then our assistant superintendent of business services gave a update on our special education budget to our SEEK members. And then I provided an update on how we're doing in our focus areas. So we had 25 people attend, great conversation, and I'm really looking forward to the impact it's going to have at the school level. In addition, we also partner with the Alpha Family Resource Center and the Santa Barbara County SELPA to provide family trainings to our families in the fall and the spring on just educating them on how to advocate for their child at their IEP meetings and what's in an IEP. There's a lot that goes in an IEP. So making sure our families understand what is that and how can you advocate for what your child needs is something that we provide to our families as well. So in regards to recommendations from SEEK, last school year, our SEEK committee put together an IEP family participation survey. So we're going to roll that out October 20th. So what that's going to tell us is, how are our families feeling at IEP meetings? Do they feel like they're part of a team? Are they getting progress reports concurrent with school report card reporting? Do they get a notice of the IEP meeting? Was it held when they were able to attend? So we're going to get information from that survey that will be offered at the end of every IEP meeting via a link, a QR code, or paper pencil. And so from that, we'll be able to really get the pulse on how families are feeling at each individual school sites and bring that to our SEEK, bring it to cabinet, bring it to you as a board, and then help those schools who might need support in supporting their families. So we're looking forward to those results and seeing how we're doing as a district when it comes to family participation. Another outcome of SEEK was it took us 3 years to get here, and we were able to, this past summer, offer an enrichment program for our students who attended our extended school year program. So they had 4 hours of extended school year, and then they're able to go to the enrichment opportunities through our AOK program. And what led from that is an opportunity for special education, our department, to collaborate with AOK to provide training this school year for the first time with their AOK leaders on students with disabilities and how to support those students and their families, and also help to support individual students who are in the AOK program that have different types of needs. So we also, whether it's our teachers or our paraeducators, are able to go to help train on individual students who might need that support in the after-school program. So it's also creating inclusive opportunities for our students outside of the school day too. So we're really proud about that. It's only going to get better. Like I said, it was our first time implementing enrichment for our ESY program, and those students that are in ESY are our students with extensive support needs. So there was a few bumps in the road when it came to the enrichment program, but we were able to identify those. One of those was training. The staff needed training, so we're able to provide that to the staff. And also looking at when enrichment was offered, those field trips. So we're going to kind of tweak that, but it was overall very successful. And I think it's only going to get better, in coming years. And then our family engagement liaisons, we partnered with them in helping us find SEEK representatives. I get to meet with them every month to work with them to provide them education on things like People First Language, our special education programs. So they're able to bring that information back to their families at their school site. So just, again, building capacity within our district, not just within the special education department, but other departments as well. So a highlight, so as you can see in 23-24, we had 6 representatives. Now we're up to 24 within our district. And this school year, we're offering double 4 trainings in the fall and 4 in the spring for our families to help support them with IEPs and, again, how to advocate for their children. And lastly, our last focus area is disproportionality. Another area we're making great strides, but we're still kind of working towards that. As you can see, since 2019-20, we've been disproportionate, which means that if you are a Hispanic Latinx student in our district, in 2019-20, you were 4 times more likely to be identified with a specific learning disability. As of last school year, we were 3.09 was our risk ratio, which means you were, now you're 3 times more likely. So still some work to do. Being that we've been disproportionate for several years now, we've had to kind of go back and take a look at what we're doing through focus interviews, empathy interviews. We've done looking at our policy analysis, our infrastructure, kind of taking a deep dive into that to determine what else can we do and what other strategies can we put in place to support our tier 1 and tier 2 instruction within our schools. So we hope after this year we'll be out of disproportionality, but we'll still have an initial 2 years to carry over the work. So being disproportionate, 15% of a special education funding is pulled each school year to help support the activities like MTSS is helping to reduce our disproportionality by not over-identifying students, but giving them the interventions before we go straight to special education assessments. So we'll continue to work on that and hopefully get our numbers down. And so all students, regardless of their race, have an equal opportunity to achieve. And like I said, we have had the opportunity to really hear from our staff and our families and some of the themes that are coming out of our empathy interviews when we're looking at kind of what can we do to change and add to what we're already doing. I've kind of highlighted in there, just ensuring that we're really looking at language acquisition and not identifying that as a disability. That's popped up quite a bit. So how are we assessing students and how are we ensuring that their language isn't overshadowing a disability or vice versa? Really meeting our, putting the students first. So shifting those mental mindsets that it's not my fault, it's their fault is coming out in our empathy interviews, not blaming the student, and then it being, it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility. Again, that mind shift, that mindset shift within our district. And then lastly, this came from a parent, teachers need to look at the rate of growth instead of the test scores. So majority of our students who qualify for special education are already below grade level. So when you're looking at end-of-grade test, if a student with a disability scores a 3 or 4, they're at grade level or above. So their education is not being impacted. So they most likely wouldn't qualify. So looking at end-of-grade testing for a way to measure how special education is doing, that's one measure, but really we should be looking at how students are progressing on their IEP goals. What is their rate of growth over the entire year? What are our outcomes when it comes to high school graduation? So not just looking at one particular test score, but instead looking at the whole student and their needs. So so just some really good thoughts. And I think I'm looking forward to revamping what we have in place for our disproportionality work. And Ed Services has really just taken the wheel and has worked really hard to ensure that every student, regardless of who you are and what needs you might have, that their needs are met inside the general education classroom. Any questions?
Thank you.
Ooh.
Do we have any public comment for this item?
Virtual comment from Brianna Serrato and a live comment from Myra Oseguera.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello again. At the recent SEEK meeting and in the attached memo, SB Unified has an 88% compliance rate. However, that compliance is only tied to the timeline of meetings and notices. Compliance rate that directly impacts students and should be a district priority is the compliance rates of providing all services and accommodations to students per their IEPs. I've been told numerous times that the district is tracking and offering compensatory services related to missed SAI time, but not the other services in students' IEPs. So again, from a parent that has tried to advocate this for years, Please do better by holding the district staff and school sites accountable to not only provide what is required based on a student's IEP, but also ensure that their IEP services are in full compliance with tracking all service minutes, not just their SII minutes and procedural concerns. In reading the very lengthy memo, I am really alarmed as to the section related to trying to reduce paraeducator support for students. As I have shared with you, all of you, trying to get much needed paraeducator support for my son has been an uphill battle since transferring to this district 3 years ago. As a parent rep for SEEK over the last 3 years, I know I am not alone in having issues of having the additionally needed adult support in the classroom and on campus for our children, for both those that have it in their IEP and those trying to have it added. I and other parents are very concerned that this is the district's way of trying to reduce the amount of paraprofessional support being provided to students that do need that support, due to there is always a short staffing issue year after year and costly third-party contracts to fill vacancies. As someone who was told last year by the school psychologist that having a paraeducator in the gen ed classroom is not the least restrictive environment, and that my child should instead have even more SAI pullout time from gen ed would be a better fit without doing any formal evaluation, I am apprehensive of the quote that the new procedure is to ensure that all students receive their education in the least restrictive environment. I also hope that teachers, case managers, and the district are also still looking at test scores to make sure that they, just like a growth chart, the student is staying on track with their scores overall. Along with the equity and communication issues I mentioned during the AOK presentation, there were also major communication issues from the district SPED department with families, case managers, and the AOK program regarding ESY last summer. In my son's case, I had to reach out to his case manager in June asking about ESY, which had been agreed upon in his IEP in March, as it was only a few weeks to the end of school and I had not received any communication regarding it. She had not heard anything, and when she reached out to the district, was provided an interest form to give to me confirming if we plan to attend ESY and were interested in AOK. Interestingly, I received and signed the form on June 4th, which stated it was due to the case manager by April 18th. So I wonder how many other students that qualified for ESY per their IEP were never provided this form and missed out on the option for optional enrichment by not being provided the ESY enrollment card on time. The other major communication issue occurred when the list of ESY students that would be attending the AOK program wasn't properly disseminated with the AOK office staff. It wasn't clear where the breakdown happened, but it was due to a copy of a list from May being shared and not the actual file that was being updated with additional students. So my son's teacher showed on her list that yes, he was enrolled in AOK. He did not show on the program's list until I went to their office to see where the disconnect was. And no, we were not the only family affected by this. So it would be great if there were checks and balances by the SPED staff for both ESY enrollment per IEP eligibility and also with confirming with the AOK staff that they have all of the students on their rosters and adequate staffing for them.
Thank you. Myra Oseguera.
Buenas noches otra vez. Mi nombre es Mayra Oseguera
Good evening again. My name is Mayra Oseguera,
y soy representante de la escuela Santa Bárbara High School y soy su co-chair del comité de SEAC.
So I'm a co-chair with the SEEK committee at Santa Barbara High School, and so I'm representing Santa Barbara High School's SEEK committee.
El 24 de septiembre tuvimos nuestra primera junta de nuestro comité en nuestra escuela.
And so on September 24th, we had our first meeting, our first SEEK meeting at our school, Santa Barbara High School.
Y esto se logró con la coordinación de nuestro Departamento de Educación Especial y nuestro principal, el señor Gómez.
And this was coordinated with the Special Education Department and our school principal, Mr. Gomez.
Quiero agradecer al señor Gómez por el tiempo para hacer su presentación y por facilitar que la junta se realizara en nuestra escuela.
And I want to thank Mr. Gomez for his presentation during our meeting and also for facilitating so that we could have this meeting.
Estamos teniendo grandes progresos en la organización y la estabilidad de nuestro comité de SEEK.
We're having great progress in our SEEK committee and also establishing the stability of our committee.
Como siempre tenemos áreas para mejorar.
As always, we have areas where we can improve.
No todos los principales o los enlaces familiares están en la misma línea.
not all principals and not all family engagement liaisons are on the same page.
Yo entiendo que requiere tiempo y organización,
And I understand that this requires time and organization.
pero si queremos mejorar la participación y el sentido de pertenencia, les recomiendo que trabajen de cerca con los padres para formar un comité sólido en sus escuelas.
And I would recommend that if we want to really create a solid space and we want to encourage participation, the recommendation would be that you all would include parents so that we can really form a solid committee.
Los padres que tenemos niños con alguna deshabilidad, constantemente somos segregados socialmente.
So us parents that have children with disabilities are constantly being socially segregated.
Para muchos de nosotros, las escuelas y nuestros comités son nuestro único lugar seguro y confiable.
For many of us, the schools and these committees are the only safe and welcoming space.
También, como se mencionó en el reporte, el verano pasado, los niños que recibieron ESY pudieron recibir más tiempo en el programa extendido de verano.
And as mentioned during the presentation in the report, students who attended the ESY program were able to receive more time in the program.
Y quiero decirles que eso es un logro y una celebración, porque por mucho tiempo estuvimos esperando por esa oportunidad.
And I want to say that that is an achievement and we should celebrate because for a long time we were waiting for that to happen.
Por otro lado, todavía tenemos estudiantes que no pueden atender a los programas de OK debido a las necesidades que requieren.
On the other hand, we still have a lot of students who are not able to attend AOK programs after school because of the level of support that they would require.
Entiendo los esfuerzos por proporcionar entrenamiento a los líderes del programa, pero creo que esto no es suficiente.
And I understand that, there will be training for the leaders of these programs, the AOK program, but that's still not enough.
Sin este soporte no estamos proporcionando una equidad y un acceso para todas las familias.
Without that support for students, we will not be providing access for all of the families and the students.
Y pues como vamos a celebrar para diciembre el 50 aniversario de nuestra acta de educación especial, quiero leer una quote de este libro que se llama We Want to Go to School.
And so in December, we will be celebrating 50 years of the law that allows students in special education to be included in school. So I want to read this quote from this book called We Want to Go to School.
Por muchos años, los niños con discapacidades en los Estados Unidos eran legalmente excluidos de la educación pública.
For many years, children with disabilities in the United States were legally excluded from public schools.
Solo si las familias podían cubrir los gastos, los podrían mandar a escuelas privadas.
Unless their families could afford to send them to private schools,
los niños se mantenían en instituciones, hospitales o en la casa.
These children remained in institutions, hospitals, or at home.
Los niños con discapacidades moderadas podrían algunas veces atender a las escuelas públicas.
Children with mild disabilities were sometimes allowed to attend public school,
pero solo para estar segregados por sus compañeros y dándoles un inadecuado acceso a la educación.
But only to be segregated from their peers and given inadequate educations.
Los administradores hacían comentarios como los niños con discapacidades no pueden aprender.
School administrators argued that children with disabilities were unable to learn,
van a distraer a otros estudiantes,
would distract the other students,
requieren mucho tiempo y dinero.
and required too much time and money.
Y quería leer esto porque quiero que todos los padres y todos estemos conscientes del progreso que hemos hecho en mejorar los servicios para nuestros niños de educación especial y la accesibilidad a los programas.
And I just wanted to read this because I want everybody to be aware of how far we've come and how much support these students need so that they can be included in school.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll turn it back to my colleagues for any questions. Ms. Caffrey.
Thank you very much for this presentation. My first question is, you mentioned that students with the most extensive reading difficulties are getting help from teachers who are trained by the Wilson Reading System. I'm curious, how are other students getting intervention? Because when I read our CASP scores for students with disabilities, I see 19.38% met or exceeded standards. So it looks like there's a large group of students who are behind. So I'm curious, how do we provide interventions, reading interventions?
So in addition to what they're provided in the general education classroom, it depends on each individual student's IEP as to how much specialized academic instruction they're going to receive each week. And so from there, that's determined the number of minutes they'll receive. And then as far as interventions, again, teachers are trained in Wilson Reading System. We're also looking at providing additional training in letters and Words Their Way for teachers as well. So that's coming next school year. But we really wanted to focus on the students with the most significant learning or reading needs and focusing on our Wilson Reading System to make sure that we provide the support for those students first.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Munoz?
Yes, I have a question about, about the grow and the transition students, particularly the transition students. I wondered if you could tell me more about that group, that program.
Yes, I would love to. That's what actually, I was able to be a principal at a transition school in Ventura, and that was probably one of my favorite, I guess, positions that I've held so far. I was able to work with 90 students who are 18 to 22. So our transition program serves students 18 to 22, those students that are in our extensive support needs high school programs. When they graduate, they go on to our transition programs. We have one at each of our high school sites. And then just recently, and I believe it was announced at one of our board meetings, we moved our WIN transition program, which was at McKinley Elementary School, to Shoreline Community Church. So we got them off a school campus and then into the community in a location that is community based. And that's really what the program focuses on. So our goal is to eventually get all of our transition programs off the high school campuses so students can experience their 4 years of high school and then go on to experience a community based program like a transition program like WIN is doing right now at Shoreline Community Church. So the focus of transition is they work with our Bridges program, which is funded through the Department of Rehab, and also Santa Barbara Unified contributes to that. And so they all have job sites within our community. Bridges helps to provide on-the-job coaching. They also provide job sites within Santa Barbara County for our students. So they work on vocational skills by going to the job sites. They also receive pay for being and working at those sites. They also work on independent living skills like going to the grocery store, learning how to, manage their money. And then they also go to Santa Barbara City College and attend classes there. So it's really that adult life. They're learning how to be an adult, which I think all of us, my son's 19 and he could use a program like a transition program. So it's a great program. They do focus on functional academics, again, like banking skills and, cooking skills and being able to take care of yourself as an adult, but also making sure they have those vocational skills, which is an amazing part of the alternate pathway to a high school diploma. Every student will receive a high school diploma. So many of our students in our transition program, a barrier is they are amazing workers. They can do the job, but they don't have their high school diploma, and that's a requirement to get that job. So now with our alternate pathway, all students will have a high school diploma, which is eliminating a barrier for many of our students who have extensive support needs. So we're really excited. That's going to be an opportunity for our students. And transition programs work to support those students. So when they leave us at 22, they have opportunities to be an inclusive member of their community.
Excellent. I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
the heck? And does it sometimes overlap with like foster youth that are transitioning?
Totally
between
different.
that age, totally different.
Yeah,
right?
different. Yes.
Okay.
But it does in regards to the alternate pathway to a high school diploma, like our students that are foster homeless youth, they're only required to complete the 13 minimum required courses in order to graduate. So that's similar, but otherwise the transition program is very much focused on our extensive support needs.
Yes, gosh,
programs.
thank you so much. I appreciate knowing about it.
Thanks for the questions.
Other questions, Mr. Benny?
Just thank you for the report and the excellent work that's going on and the recognition that there's more to be done and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That takes us into comments. Ms. Caffrey?
Thank you very much for the presentation. And I know we talked about this in our governance meeting, that when there's a new board, which is even just one board member, that there are new expectations and changes, and that it is very hard and we're still adjusting to that. And also having clarity going forward about what kind of data we need and how we can understand our programs and how are they serving our students. So I know that we're going to have a student outcomes report next board meeting. My concern is basically that we're going to get a deluge of data and that it's going to be too much for us to really process. And I know that this is, again, a change in how our board operates, and we're talking a lot about how we might get a board coach, using our time as effectively as possible, and that when we look at our programs, we really need to see data at the same time. So I really appreciated seeing the disproportionality data. I thought that was very helpful. And I know that I'm a new board member, and this is why. I don't expect any of this to already be happening, but on special education in particular, I think that we really need to think about outcomes for kids. And when you look at best practices for students that are, for districts that are moving the needle for special education kids, they are focused on results and not inputs. So I think we just need to think deeply about how we, here, I'll bring this back. What I would really like is to have a board presentation on special education that includes student outcomes, as well as what are we doing to move the needle for kids and improve our outcomes. I know that it's extremely challenging and complex department to run, but I'd like to know, when we look out at the whole country, where are we seeing districts that are having real success in this area, and what are they doing? And how much are we aligned with that, and what else do we need to do? Because when I look at the CASP data, and I would love to see growth over time. Also, are we improving with outcomes over time? So I think my takeaway from this presentation is I'd like to know a lot more, to have results, outcomes associated with the presentation. And I know that this is a deeper conversation about how we use our board time and what is presented to us. So this is a board conversation, but then also best practices for special ed in particular, because I know in our finance committee, we talked about special education being 18% of our current budget. And I am all for spending if it's driving results. But I want to make sure that we are being as effective as possible with our spending, and making sure that our kids are actually achieving at the highest level they possibly can. So that would be my ask, that two things, that at some point we have a special education presentation with data associated with it, including longitudinal data, and then also to do a deep study in what are districts doing where we are seeing huge growth in outcomes for special ed kids, and what else can we do to serve our kids.
So I'll make a couple of comments following up on Ms. Caffrey. And I'm not saying that this is how you intended to frame it, but I think we should reframe at least the beginning of your statement to say, our staff are focused on outcomes for students. And so I think that that's not what you intended to say, but what I'm hearing is that you want more, you want CASP data is what I heard. And you want longitudinal data, because there was data included in this presentation, but I want to hear specifically what it is that you're requesting, because as we discussed on Saturday, it can be a little bit, it's a tough target to hit when all 5 of us have different expectations for the presentation. And I think I would like to hear a little bit more about specifically what it is you're asking for.
And I think that staff is focused on results, but when we look at the presentation, we don't see any results. We don't see how our kids are doing. So what we see are the inputs, all the things that we are trying to do to help our kids without any any data on what are the outcomes for our kids. So that's the piece that is missing in the presentation to me. Like, that's what I mean. I'm not saying they're not focused on results internally, but I would also like to know what else we could be doing, because I think this is fairly new in terms of what are best practices for special education and how, for example, and I know Trustee Banning mentioned this before about doing board reading together so we all have similar information, but one best practice is having fewer paraprofessionals and more behavioral specialists, and addressing the root causes of children's behavioral needs versus giving them a para. So that's one example. The fact that we have 300 paras makes me wonder what else we could be doing to better align with best practices.
I think personally, as not an educator, I look at the slide that shows all of our students with disabilities and the diversity of needs. And I would request that maybe approaching staff with the question of like, what maybe a little bit more information about what we're currently doing to kind of meet what you're talking about, because I would bet that we're doing a lot of what you're probably reading about from other school districts or that you're speaking to right now. I think it would be interesting to get a presentation of some sort to talk about what it is that we're currently doing. And then I think we can talk about diving deeper into what it is that we could do. I think that would be, if we were going to go down that path, and that's the path that the majority of the board wanted to go, that's kind of where I would want to start as personally. Dr. Beal.
So what I interpret this conversation as is, we are going to look at CASP scores at the end of October, I'm assuming, right? That's where we put the report. And there's going to be so many different groups of students we're going to look at. And special education, as we can see from the slides, is heterogeneous in of itself, right? There's different students with different abilities. And in this board governance project that we're embarking on, I think we're trying to move towards meetings where we do discuss outcomes, and there probably will be a time where we are going to just say, let's just look at our SPED students in a very granular way. So yes, we need to do that. I agree. We need to move towards it. So yes. And then at that point, maybe we can say, okay, well, if there's a group that we feel, depending on the outcomes we decide upon, that there's no growth, or there seems to be, then we do the research, and we have those conversations, like what does everybody think, the experts in the room, other things, how can we look at that little group, that little slice, and make it better? So yes, we do need to have that, and we do need to look at other practices. So hopefully we evolve.
Yes, agreed. Other comments, Mr. Manning?
Yeah, I just, the issues around special education, what I'm hearing from Trustee Caffrey is really an interest in understanding what achievement looks like in special education and what growth looks like there. And one of the things that we heard tonight, which is the great paradox of special education and testing, is that students are identified with a learning disability or some reason that they are to get special education services. identified when they qualify, and they qualify when the disability is affecting their achievement. Is that, am I on par right there? So you actually said at one point in your discussion tonight that the assumption is that students are de facto below grade level when they've qualified for special education. And so one of the questions I would ask is, at what point, I understand that we can measure their growth by their goals within their IEP, their growth by CASP, their growth on all these other things. But when I hear a number that some percentage, I think it was 19% of some subcategory in special education that was on grade level on CASP scores, the paradox is the question: if they're on grade level and they have qualified, why are they in special education? And the answer is that they've either grown into it or that there are other disabilities and things that are impacted. But again, I'm going to ring the complexity bell. It's just amazingly complex, and I don't disagree at all with what you're looking at. It will not be a simple ask to say, let's identify the points that we can look at and see growth over time and understand it. So I appreciate entirely what you're saying about results oriented. And the way we look at that is trying to figure out how can we measure it? And CASP is not going to be the answer with special ed kids.
Ms. Caffrey.
So here I think perhaps we want to do at some point a deep dive into special ed. And so we as a board can get up to speed in terms of what is happening around the country with special ed students, and districts are using standardized test scores and seeing extraordinary growth for special education students. So I think that we should not have the mentality. I mean, we talk about mindset, but the mindset that we can affect change here, I think, is what is needed. So.
Ms. Munoz.
I'm trying to, let's see, I get what you're saying. We want to provide the best to our students. I couldn't agree with you more. I have a aunt who passed, and she had Down syndrome since, and was in Mexico and Durango and was at home, and so forth. And none of all these wonderful quality instructions existed and whatnot. And I was previously to this, and I have a hard time saying SEAC, this, I still have a hard time saying that, and stuff. And I was on it. I was on I was the board representative, I should say, on the committee after, Kate board, and such. And I know now it's in the able hands of Dr. Beal. We have, one of the things, as I think as Mr. Banning is saying, is that it is so complex. It's complex. I mean, I can say that in capital letters. It's so complex. The parents know it better than I do, and a lot of us are just in admiration for what they do. There are students that have gone through our system who just have amazed me. One of them is across the street, and he went on to college, I want to think Chico or Davis, and his mom was on our committee, and such, a real leader, Melissa Fitch, and so forth. And so he's in college. He's like up north in college. Was incredible. It's a program special, a unique program and such. I think that, we're making huge strides. First, it was when I first came on the board, it was, the disproportionality. Todos los Latinos, ahí estábamos. If you were Latino, if you were Black, you were more likely to be there, I should say. If you were, yeah, I just translated it. Sorry, I go into my Spanish and stuff, and I'm constantly translating and whatnot. And so when you get, EML students, when you get students that have special, issues going on that they're dealing with, 1, 2, 3 of, issue, autism, you get, et cetera, hearing issues and whatnot. Multiple risk factors, parents that are employed, that have 2 jobs, maybe, on and on. I mean, I'm a social worker. I could talk about this for hours. It's complex. It's hard to get the data of that. The data around that. It's possible, but I'm just saying I want to celebrate like the huge strides that we're making, and then also include learning about other, what other folks are doing and such. So I think it's I know it's possible, and I know that we can do a lot for our children, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know, Dr. Maldonado, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, I just want to echo what Trustee Banning said, and actually want to elevate it to another place, which is there is a graphic picture of a bunch of little animals lined up by a tree that are failing the swimming test. And none of them are sea animals. They are land animals. So the test is inherently designed that they will all fail the swimming test. And so the measures we use in education and what they're designed for and what they're really measuring, when we do get to have this discussion about results, really matter. To say that a student or to look at our test scores for special ed students and say that if only 19% are making it, that means, 81% are failing is a fallacy in understanding the measure. It's the same thing when we say the student that just arrived from another country and doesn't speak English, who's been given a test in only English, has failed it. And I would ask us to go to people first language, result first language that really looks at a measure that is adequately designed. We have 1,800 IEPs. That means there are 1,800 goals that we would need to look at, 1,800 people's goals of achievement, and how we measure them and the metrics we use really matter. So yes, we should have the conversation about results, but let's be utterly clear. To use CASP is inherently wrong for us to discuss as a measure of the whole program and of any one of those individuals. So I would just go back to that picture. I don't know if you have it, Carla. You can maybe send it around. I'll send it to the board later. I think you guys have used it in many of the trainings. But the measurement tool, and historically in education, it has been used to relegate people to lower classes or to really keep them out of education. So there's a lot that gets to be unpacked, but in my comments are not meant to say that we are not looking for providing the best educational programs for every single child, and that their dignity and human growth is going to be valued. So I really applaud the team. I think their team has shrunk like everybody else's team, and they're still doing that. And the work that they did on the audit on what is happening, the findings and the actions is another way we're measuring how we're improving. So that was a lot of work that the team took that is not a measurement in the sense that we're talking about a CASP test, but measuring outcomes, auditing the actual work, and then coming up with the findings. We're reporting findings to you of things we need to improve, and we're reporting actions. And when I say we, it's them, not me. But I just want to make sure that we don't lose the conversation and forget the inherent worth of the humans that we're working with. Thank you.
Ms. Munoz and then Ms. Caffrey.
I would just like to, it's reminded, in listening to Dr. Maldonado and also a conversation that you and I had when we went to the Latino, conference on schools and so forth, is that when I was a child welfare worker, I had, obviously without going into names and such, a young boy, a mother that was a single mom, a young boy, and I don't remember his, diagnoses anyways. I can't even just, and such, but he attended McKinley School, and he was, had, needed moderate support. Mom was homeless, so she was staying at the shelter, no car. Her own history was, of course, a lot of trauma and such. And so that's who we're serving. We're doing a superb job. And when I go to the schools that, such as Cleveland, or, I don't know if the program is still at McKinley, because that was before, quite a few years ago, is that the paraeducators, the educators and stuff, they're hands-on. I mean, they're, taking care of these children and giving them support and being sensitive to their needs and to the parents or guardians and such. So when I think of a complex case, I think that's a good example of like all the very many challenges that they have. And when they go to the IEP, I'd sit with them, and the parents, and the anxiety before the IEP, and during and after and stuff. I mean, I get goosebumps. These parents are just amazing, and such. And I just want to highlight that just as a, as a social worker in the field.
Ms. Caffrey.
Yes, I completely hear that we are serving students who come with many, many challenges, including their home lives. I guess I am just asking that we are a learning institution and we learn all the time, right? And we're constantly evolving. So what I would like is to understand what is happening in the greater ecosystem around special education. And perhaps that would be a study session for us to understand what is happening and what is possible. So I think that would be very useful.
My last comment will be, I don't think there's anyone in this room that disagrees with, we're a learning organization. We want to learn more. We want to look at other examples across the country that are from folks that are really successful. I also would challenge us to learn about what's happening in the district. We're not going to learn it in one presentation or even in multiple presentations. So I like the idea of a board study session where we deep dive, but in my opinion, a large portion of that needs to be about what currently is happening, because it is a very complex topic for this board to really grasp, even in one board study session.
I think that makes total sense. And it just seems like for something where we're spending 18% of our budget, we need to have a deeper look and think about how else we can maximize outcomes for kids.
It's the goal
and it's not about the budget exclusively. I know I keep coming back to the budget. The whole point, though, is that we want to serve kids in a way where they learn as much as possible. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And that's why we're all here at 9:08. Yeah. So we want to serve kids, and there's not a single person here that doesn't have that goal. So with that, we will close out F3. Thank you all so much. I know it's a late night, but this is such an important topic, and I really appreciate you all. Get some rest. I know you deserve it. All right, board, do we want to take a 5-minute break or do we want to power through? 6. All right, let's do a 5-minute break. We'll return. Well, actually a 6-minute break. We'll return at 9:15. Okay. We will call this meeting back to order at 9:20. We're a little late. We'll go to the action agenda, which is G1, adoption of resolution 2025-2026-12, recognizing October as National Dyslexia Awareness Month. And we have a resolution in front of us. And so we're just going to jump right in. And I'll start. Whereas Santa Barbara Unified School District recognized that our children are our most valuable resource, we must provide opportunities to learn and grow, and Your mic.
Whereas the International Dyslexia Association defines dyslexia as a language-based learning disability and inheritable and highly prevalent, affecting as many as 15 to 20% of the population as a whole. And
whereas dyslexia, meaning difficulty with words, constitutes one of the several distinct learning disabilities and is characterized by challenges in processing language when decoding oral and written words. And
whereas dyslexia deeply affects students' ability to read, write, spell, and comprehend, and may also affect students emotionally and their overall well-being. The National Institute of Child Health and Human Development states that poor literacy is a national health problem because of the ramifications that can last a lifetime. And
whereas students with dyslexia, especially those who are not identified and are reading below grade level at the end of third grade, often experience difficulties with depression, anxiety, and poor self-image, and rarely catch up to their peers, and as a result underperform in school and are at a greater risk for failure and dropping out before completing high school. And
whereas with proper identification, appropriate instruction, accommodation, access to assistive technologies, support from families, teachers, and friends, individuals with dyslexia can excel in school and employment. And
whereas the district works to inform and empower families, educators, and businesses with the most current research-based practices to promote meaningful literacy development with the goal of preparing individuals for a hopeful and productive future. And
whereas each student who struggles to learn is unique and deserves every chance to fulfill his or her potential for a happy and productive life. And
whereas in an effort to assist parents, educators, and individuals, the International Dyslexia Association has designated October as Dyslexia Awareness Month.
therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Barbara Board of Education does hereby proclaim October 2025 Dyslexia Awareness Month in the Santa Barbara Unified School District and encourages staff members, families, and the community to collaborate to raise awareness and understanding in so much as to identify, treat, and prevent problems associated with dyslexia in order to ensure the success for every student with dyslexia.
okay, so I'll turn it back to the board. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt for the adoption of resolution 2025-2026-12, recognizing October as National Dyslexia Awareness Month.
Do I have a second?
A second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. That takes us to G2, approval of resolution 2025-26-02, requiring full payment of school impact fees at building permit issuance pursuant to Education Code 17620. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Escobedo, board members, Dr. Maldonado, cabinet. Tonight, we're asking the board to adopt a resolution 2025-26-6, which reaffirms the district's authority to collect developer fees at the time of when the permits are issued. So the history to this item is that there was a Senate bill passed, Senate Bill 937. It took effect this year in January, which allows certain developments to delay the payment of the school impact fees until after the completion of the project and before the certificate of occupancy. So our district is actually exempt from that rule, so we can continue collecting those developer fees in the beginning of the project at the permit issuance, because we have adopted our 5-year facilities master plan, which allows us to exercise this exemption. So this is the effect of this resolution, and at this time, I would like to ask for your approval of this resolution and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment for this item? Not seeing any. Do we have any questions from the board? If not, do we have a motion?
I move to approve resolution 25-26-06, requiring full payment of school impact fees at building permit issuance pursuant to Education Code sections 17620B.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
It's unanimous. Thank you. That closes out our action agenda and moves us to H1, acceptance of donations for October 14th, 2025.
I move to approve, I move to accept donations for October 14th, 2025 with gratitude.
We have a first. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. And that takes us to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any board members or the superintendent would like to pull? Not seeing any. Are there any public comment? Not seeing any. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second from Ms. Caffrey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. That takes us to coming events. Take a look at the calendar. Future, our next board meeting is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. And unless there are any objections, I think that allows us to close out our meeting at 9:27. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.